Welcome, seeker of ancient wisdom and cosmic truths. I am your guide through the forgotten corridors of galactic history. If this journey into the deepest mysteries of the Jedi Order resonates with your spirit, consider leaving a mark of your passage by liking this chronicle and subscribing to our Temple of Knowledge for future expeditions into the stars. In the beginning, there was the Force. Before the Republic, before the ancient wars, before the first lightsaber ignited against the darkness of ignorance, even before the name Jedi was whispered across the stars. Tonight we venture to Tython, cradle of Force knowledge, during the Grand Conjunction, when 7 moons align above an ancient temple long forgotten by history. As we approach the weathered stone archway, notice how the very air seems to vibrate with potential, with memory, with power. The stones beneath our feet have witnessed the footsteps of the very first Force wielders over 25,000 years ago. The temple ahead appears ordinary at first glance, its weathered spires reaching toward the night sky like gnarled fingers. But as the 7th moon completes the celestial alignment above, something extraordinary happens. The ground trembles slightly, and ethereal rivers of luminescent energy begin to flow visibly through the air, converging on the temple. These are no mere tricks of light. These are the currents of the Force itself, made manifest during this rare astronomical event. As we step through the entrance, the ancient stone corridors illuminate with a soft blue luminescence emanating from glyphs carved into the walls. These markings are not decorative. They are a language so ancient that it predates even the earliest known Jedi records, a language of power and terrible knowledge. The central chamber opens before us, a vast circular space with a domed ceiling mapping forgotten constellations. At its center stands a crystalline altar, now glowing with the same ethereal light that flows through the temple. As we approach, the light intensifies, and suddenly the air above the altar shimmers, revealing a projection unlike any holocron technology known to the Republic. Shadowy figures appear in the vision, seated in a circle. Their faces remain obscured, but their presence feels immense, powerful, primordial. These beings communicate in hushed tones, deliberating what appears to be a monumental decision. Though their language is unknown to us, one phrase repeats clearly enough to understand. The balance must be maintained, at all costs. One figure rises, taller than the rest, its hand outstretched in warning or perhaps prophecy. In that moment, the vision zooms outward dramatically, revealing not just a room, not just a planet, but an entire galaxy. Then beyond, to the darkness between galaxies, where something vast and patient watches, waits. The vision abruptly shatters, fragments of light scattering across the chamber before fading entirely, leaving only the soft glow of the altar. There, previously hidden, lies an artifact partially visible in the stone, ancient script encircling its exposed edge. A prophecy. The words seem to shift as we try to read them, as if the meaning itself is fluid, dependent on who observes and when. But certain phrases remain constant with each attempt. When the 3 are as one again, the darkness between stars, the watchers shall return. But who are the 3? What lurks in the void between galaxies? And most chilling of all, who or what watches us from beyond known space? As we contemplate these questions, the Force whispers seem to intensify, almost as if calling your name specifically, inviting you deeper into this mystery. The walls of the chamber appear to breathe with ancient power, and for just a moment you feel countless eyes upon you from across time itself. This is merely the surface of an ocean of hidden knowledge. The true history of the Jedi Order lies beneath layers of official doctrine, convenient revisions, and deliberate obfuscation. What you have been told about the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy is at best incomplete. At worst, it is a carefully constructed myth designed to conceal truths too dangerous for casual knowledge. The complete timeline of the Jedi Order reveals a far more complex, thrilling, and sometimes disturbing narrative than the romanticized legends passed down through generations. It is a story of light and shadow, of wisdom and terrible mistakes, of noble sacrifice and hidden agendas spanning millennia. And it begins not with certainty, but with a question that echoes through the Force itself. Are you prepared to learn what the Masters sought to conceal, even from their own order? The galaxy holds countless worlds, but few bear the weight of history, quite like Ossus, once a center of Jedi learning, now a graveyard of knowledge after the Kron supernova scorched its surface centuries ago. Most believe all wisdom perished in that cataclysm, but the Force has guided you to discover otherwise. You stand before a hidden entrance revealed not by technology, but by the light of 3 specific stars aligning with an ancient marker, a wayfinder recovered from the wreckage of a forgotten vessel on Dantooine, led you here when all other instruments failed. Its crystalline structure, neither fully mechanical nor entirely organic, pulses with a rhythm that matches your heartbeat as you approach the sealed doorway. The door bears no visible mechanism, no control panel or lock, only a handprint impression worn into stone so old it has taken on the glassy sheen of minerals compressed over millennia. When you place your palm against it, a resonance passes through your body, testing not merely your physical form, but the very essence of your Force sensitivity. For you are not simply an explorer or historian. You are the last in a lineage of Force-sensitive archaeologists, individuals who can touch an object and perceive echoes of its past. Where others see only relics, you perceive stories, emotions, truth. This rare gift has drawn you to places others cannot find, following traces of energy invisible to conventional seekers. The door recognizes something in your essence and yields. Ancient mechanisms grind to life, revealing a narrow stairway descending beneath the blasted surface of Ossus. The air that rushes forth is not stale as one might expect from a sealed chamber, but cool and faintly sweet, carrying hints of preservative energies long forgotten by modern science. As you descend, crystal illuminators awaken at your approach, their light steadier than flame, but warmer than modern glow panels. The stairway opens into a vast chamber that defies the modest exterior of the entrance. Not merely a room, but an entire complex stretches before you, preserved intact beneath the surface when catastrophe claimed the world above. This is the true Great Library of Ossus, its existence erased from official Jedi records. While the known library served as the Order's public repository, this hidden archive stored knowledge deemed too sensitive for general access, even among most Jedi. Crystal memory matrices line the walls, thousands upon thousands, each containing information that would fill multiple holocrons. Unlike the rigid organization of the temple archives on Coruscant, this collection follows patterns reflecting the flow of the Force itself. Knowledge here is not categorized by subject, but by resonance, by how deeply it connects to the fundamental mysteries of existence. As you pass rows of dormant holographic projectors, they flicker to life, responding to your presence. Fragmentary images appear momentarily, ancient masters in meditation, star maps of regions beyond the outer rim, lightsaber designs unseen for millennia. The projectors seem almost eager after centuries of silence, activating unbidden as if desperate to fulfill their purpose once more. Your attention shifts to a disturbance in the dust coating a far section of the archive. Unlike the untouched perfection of most corridors, this area shows signs of recent movement. Someone else has found this sanctuary, someone skilled enough to locate what the entire Jedi Order believed destroyed. Before you can investigate further, a voice speaks from the shadows. I wondered when another would find their way here. The figure that emerges is unexpected. A Togruta female, elderly by her species standards, with montrals that have grown so long they curve back toward her shoulders. More surprising than her presence is her transparency, the subtle blue luminescence that marks her as a Force apparition. Do not be alarmed, she continues. I am Keeper Sashandril, or rather the echo of who she once was. My physical form joined with the Force 3 centuries ago, but my connection to this archive remains. She explains that she manifests only during specific alignments of Ursa's remaining moon, when the Force flows strongly through the ruins. Her existence is tied to the archive itself, a technique nearly forgotten even in her time. You arrive at a crucial moment, she tells you. The knowledge preserved here has waited for one who could understand its importance, but we face a limitation. The Keeper gestures toward hairline fractures running along the chamber ceiling. The devastation above has been slowly reaching downward over centuries. The preservation fields maintaining the archive are failing systematically, sector by sector. In 3 standard days, the final supports will collapse. This repository will be lost forever. As this sobering news settles upon you, a mechanical shuffling draws your attention. From an alcove emerges a droid unlike modern designs, more akin to early Republic models but with significant modifications. The Mech 95 archivist droid introduces itself in a voice soft enough to suggest its vocal processors were specifically calibrated for library use. Greetings, researcher. This unit has maintained the physical archives for 4,673 years, 2 months, and 16 days since its last memory wipe. The droid's most remarkable feature becomes apparent as it approaches. Its chest cavity houses a small kyber crystal, something no standard droid would incorporate. The Keeper explains that when certain records were purged from Jedi archives throughout the galaxy, this droid was modified to retain copies in crystal storage that would resist any remote deletion commands. The droid contains records of decisions never entered into official minutes, she says. Conversations in council chambers after recording devices were deactivated, the true reasons behind pivotal shifts in Jedi philosophy. With limited time before the archives collapse and vast knowledge to explore, you must make choices about where to focus your efforts. The complete timeline of the Jedi Order lies before you, but only fragments can be saved. The Keeper guides you to a central pedestal, where a star map of the galaxy shimmers into existence. Points of light mark significant locations in Jedi history, from well-known worlds like Coruscant and Ilum, to places absent from modern charts. Begin at the beginning, she suggests. Understand how it all started, and the later deviations will become clear. As you approach the map, your fingers pass through the holographic representation of a world labeled in ancient script as Tython. The moment contact is made, something extraordinary happens. The Force sensitivity that allows you to read objects extends to this digital representation, creating a connection not merely to information, but to the residual Force energy recorded within. The chamber around you seems to fade as your perception is transported across time and space, not merely seeing history, but experiencing its echo through the Force, a technique the Keeper identifies as flow walking, once practiced by Force users from the unknown regions. Few possess the aptitude for this method, she observes. Your connection to the Force takes a rare form, attuned to knowledge rather than conventional power. The droid approaches with a small device resembling a bracelet. This chronometric stabilizer will allow you to maintain temporal focus during historical immersion. Without it, subjective experience may cause 3 minutes of archival connection to consume hours of actual time. With the limitations of your 3-day window made clear, you accept the device. The prospect of exploring the entire Jedi timeline is daunting but exhilarating. From the first awakening to the Force on forgotten worlds, through the formation of the Order, its golden ages and darkest hours, to its fall and beyond, the true history waits to be uncovered. As you prepare to begin the systematic exploration, the Keeper offers one final warning. Not all who seek this knowledge do so with enlightenment as their goal. The one who came before you searched specifically for information about ancient weapons, Force techniques sealed away for the safety of all. They left frustrated, but may return. How long ago was this other visitor here, you ask? The keeper's expression grows troubled. Time moves differently for one in my state, but by the dust patterns disturbed, I would estimate no more than one standard week. Be vigilant. The Force guides many to places of power, but not all who follow its currents serve the light. With this caution in mind, you turn your attention to the task at hand. The Menke droid has prepared the earliest accessible records, dating back to a time before the Jedi name was ever spoken. Holo records, artifacts, and text scrolls await your examination. The Keeper takes her place beside the central pedestal, her form growing more defined as the moonlight above reaches its zenith. Let us begin with those who first heard the song of the Force, long before lightsabers illuminated the darkness, when the galaxy was younger and the boundaries between the physical and spiritual realms were less defined. The mech droid activates the primary systems, and the archive comes fully to life around you. Constellations of information float through the air, ancient wisdom waiting to be rediscovered, with time working against you, and the tantalizing prospect of uncovering the unfiltered truth of the Jedi Order. You place your hand upon the first crystal memory matrix. The journey through time begins now, a voyage not merely through history, but through the very soul of the Force itself, as experienced by those who devoted their lives to understanding its mysteries. The first crystal memory matrix responds to your touch, its surface warming beneath your fingertips. The chamber around you dissolves into a blanket of stars, then resolves into the image of a windswept mountain plateau. Ancient figures wrapped in simple robes stand with arms outstretched toward a sky filled with aurora-like energy patterns. The Dai Bendu monks of Andu Prime, the Keeper narrates as the scene materializes fully. Among the first to sense the Force as a unified field rather than disconnected mystical occurrences, this gathering took place approximately 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. The monks move in slow, deliberate patterns that seem random at first, but gradually reveal themselves as responses to the flowing energies above. They are not yet manipulating the Force as later Jedi would, but rather listening to it, allowing its currents to guide their movements in perfect harmony. They had no concept of light or dark sides, the Keeper explains. To the Dai Bendu, the Force was simply the breath of the universe, neither benevolent nor malevolent. Their writings describe it as the song that stars would sing if sound could travel through vacuum. The Menke droid supplements this observation with precise historical context. The Dai Bendu achieved interstellar travel 3,000 years before forming cohesive theories about the Force. They were drawn to specific worlds without understanding why, following what they called the directing whisper. As you observe these proto-Jedi, you notice their techniques differ fundamentally from later traditions. Their connection seems more primal, more direct, uncomplicated by doctrine or formalized training. When they sense disturbances in the Force, they respond not with counterforce, but with acceptance and adaptation, bending like reeds in a stream rather than standing firm against the current. The archive contains a partial translation of their earliest text, the Keeper says, gesturing toward a scroll that materializes beside the vision. Most significant is their prophecy regarding Tython, a world they never visited but somehow knew would become crucial to Force understanding. The scroll unfurls in the air before you, ancient symbols shifting into comprehensible text as the archive's translation matrices engage. When the wandering stars align with the prisoner's hood, seekers shall be drawn to the world of Tython. There the silent voice will speak clearly, and those who listen shall either transcend their forms or be consumed by the power they awaken. From their understanding or their ashes, the path forward will emerge. You request clarification about this prophecy, and the MK droid responds with unexpected insight. Analysis suggests this refers to the force storms that would eventually bring diverse force-sensitive individuals to Titan. Astronomical calculations confirm a stellar alignment matching the described prisoner's hood configuration occurred approximately 36,000 standard years ago. The vision shifts forward in time, the plateau fading to be replaced by a forest clearing on a different world. Here, humanoid figures sit in meditation beneath twin suns, their concentration focused on small objects floating before them. The Order of Dai Bendu eventually established monasteries across 27 worlds, the Keeper continues. Their understanding of the Force evolved from passive observation to active communion. This particular gathering on Ando Prime represents a crucial evolutionary step, the first documented case of telekinesis through force manipulation. The scene dissolves again, progressing through a rapid sequence of developments spanning centuries. You witness the Dai Bendu spreading their knowledge, encountering other force traditions, creating the first crude devices to store force energy, and eventually developing interstellar vessels guided by force-sensitive navigators rather than conventional hyperspace technology. Their ships followed force currents invisible to normal perception, the Menke droid explains. This method allowed travel to regions unreachable through standard hyperspace routes, including a direct path to Titan, which conventional navigation would not discover for another 15,000 years. The vision slows as it reaches a momentous gathering. Representatives from diverse species and traditions converge on a great stone temple. Some arrive in ships propelled by conventional engines, others in vessels that seem to materialize from folds in space itself. The convocation of Titan, the Keeper identifies, not the beginning of the Jedi Order as most histories record, but rather the third such gathering. The first two ended in conflict when different Force traditions could not reconcile their philosophies. You observe beings from worlds spanning the galaxy, each carrying unique perspectives on Force philosophy, the Wookiees with profound connection to the life force of their forest homeworld. Miraluka, whose sightless eyes perceive only through Force vision, Zepho, whose natural attunement to psychometry rivals your own abilities, all drawn to Titan by dreams, visions, or simply an inexplicable compulsion. The vision grows more detailed as you focus on a central figure, a human woman whose presence in the Force outshines those around her. She carries a staff topped with a crystal that pulses in rhythm with the planetary heartbeat beneath her feet. Ketu, the Keeper names her. Not the founder of the Jedi as later histories would claim, but the one who finally united the disparate traditions under core principles all could accept. Her insight was revolutionary not in its complexity, but its simplicity. The vision allows you to experience the moment as Ketu addresses the gathered Force users. Though no sound transmits across millennia, the translation appears as text accompanying the scene. We have sought mastery over the Force, each in our way, but true understanding comes not from mastery, but from surrender, not from imposing our will upon the Force, but by aligning our will with it. Balance is found not in rejecting aspects of the Force we fear, but in embracing the totality of its nature, light and dark, creation and destruction, life and transformation. As she speaks, the crystal in her staff pulses with increasing intensity. The ground beneath the gathering begins to tremble, not destructively, but as if the planet itself resonates with her words. Around the assembled beings, the air shimmers with visible Force energy, coalescing into a vortex that touches each participant in turn. This moment, the Keeper says softly, represents the true foundation of what would become the Jedi philosophy, though much of Ketu's wisdom would later be forgotten or deliberately set aside. You reach toward the crystal matrix, focusing your innate psychometric abilities to deepen the connection. The vision responds by becoming more immersive, the boundaries between observer and observed momentarily blurring. For a brief but profound moment, you share Ketu's perception, experiencing the Force as she did, without the artificial divisions of light and dark that would later define Jedi teaching. In this state of connection, you perceive something the historical record failed to capture. Beyond the circle of gathered Force users, watching from the shadowed edges of the temple complex, stand figures that seem simultaneously present and absent, as if only partially existing in the physical realm. Their attention focuses intently on the proceedings, their purpose unclear but their power undeniable. Before you can study these observers more closely, the vision begins to fade as the crystal matrix reaches the limits of its preserved memory. As the archive chamber rematerializes around you, you find both the Keeper and the MK droid studying you with heightened interest. You perceived something unexpected, the Keeper states rather than asks. You describe the Watchers at the periphery of the vision, entities neither fully corporeal nor entirely spectral. The Keeper and droid exchange a significant look before the droid accesses a secured portion of its memory core. Similar entities appear in 12 separate historical records across a span of 22,000 years. The droid confirms, always observing critical developments in Force understanding, never directly interfering. References exist in restricted Council archives under classification level Horizon Echo, access limited to Grand Masters only. The Keeper's form flickers momentarily, a sign of her agitation. The identity and purpose of these Watchers represents one of the greatest mysteries in Jedi history. Some believe them to be manifestations of the Force itself. Others theorize they were beings from beyond our galaxy, or even our dimension. Did the Jedi ever establish contact with them, you ask? There exists one record of attempted communication. The droid responds. The details are fragmented, but the encounter occurred during the lifetime of Master Ter-Senden, approximately 6,000 years before the Galactic Republic. The outcome was evidently concerning enough that all related documentation was subsequently purged from public archives. This revelation adds a new dimension to your exploration. Not only must you trace the evolution of Jedi philosophy and practice, but also the influence of these mysterious observers whose very existence was concealed from most of the Order itself. The chronometer on your wrist pulses gently, reminding you of the limited time remaining before the archives collapse. 3 standard days suddenly seems woefully inadequate for the wealth of knowledge awaiting discovery. We should proceed chronologically, you decide. From the foundation of the Jedi Order, through its evolution into the Jedi as recorded in conventional history. The Keeper nods in agreement. A wise approach, understanding the root, allows one to comprehend why the tree grew as it did, with all its twists and unexpected branches. As the MK droid prepares the next sequence of historical records, focusing on the early structure of the Jedi Temple system on Tython, you take a moment to center yourself. The Force flows strongly in this place of preserved knowledge, carrying echoes of countless individuals who devoted their lives to understanding its mysteries. You have begun a journey through the complete timeline of the Jedi Order, one that promises to reveal truths long hidden from even the most devoted scholars. The path ahead spans millennia of wisdom, conflict, triumph, and tragedy, all leading toward a destiny perhaps even now unfolding across the stars. With renewed focus, you place your hand upon the next crystal memory matrix. The chamber once again dissolves into starlight, as you prepare to witness the next chapter in the ancient legacy of those who would become the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. The second crystal matrix activates beneath your touch, and the archive chamber transforms into a panoramic view of Tython during the early Jedi era. 9 great temples rise from the landscape, each positioned at a specific Force nexus point. Unlike the unified architectural style of later Jedi structures, these temples display distinct designs reflecting the diverse traditions that contributed to the emerging order. The Temple of Balance at the center, the Keeper indicates, with the 8 satellite temples forming a perfect octagon around it. each dedicated to a specific aspect of Force understanding. The vision zooms toward the Temple of Balance, revealing an interior unlike any Jedi structure recorded in official histories. Rather than the austere meditation chambers of later traditions, this space pulses with energy. At its heart sits a massive kyber crystal formation, not harvested and shaped but growing naturally from the temple floor. Force users move around it in carefully choreographed patterns, some bathed in light, others embracing shadow, all maintaining perfect equilibrium. The Titan system itself served as training ground, the Menkai droid explains, projecting supplementary data beside the vision. The moons Ashla and Bogan represented light and dark aspects of the Force respectively. Adepts who leaned too far toward either extreme were sent to meditate on the opposing moon to restore their balance. You observe the training methods with growing fascination. Jedi Masters guide their students not away from emotions, but through them, teaching controlled passion rather than emotionless detachment. When anger or fear arise, these early Force users do not suppress such feelings, but channel them purposefully before releasing them. Their philosophy centered on the concept of balance within the individual. The Keeper notes, neither rejecting darkness nor surrendering to it. A middle path later Jedi would abandon. The vision shifts to reveal a circular chamber where 9 masters sit in council. Their discussion appears heated, with emphatic gestures suggesting significant disagreement. Though no sound carries through the centuries, their debate clearly focuses on a scroll unrolled at the center of their circle. The first recorded schism, the Keeper identifies. These records predate the official history by nearly 7,000 years. What you are witnessing never appeared in any Jedi archive, accessible to even high-ranking knights. The Menkai droid accesses its specialized memory core. The scroll contains accounts of Force phenomena, inconsistent with established Jedi understanding. Reports from explorers who encountered beings in the unknown regions capable of abilities the Order considered impossible or forbidden. As you focus on the scroll, the translation matrix provides fragments of text. Beyond known space, entities who exist simultaneously in multiple realms, capacity to transfer consciousness between vessels, manipulation of time perception, communion with those who have become one with the Force. The Council's debate grows more intense. 3 masters stand in apparent protest, gathering the scroll before departing the chamber. The remaining 6 appear troubled, their expressions suggesting not victory but resignation. What happened to the 3 who left, you ask? The Keeper's form flickers momentarily. According to sparse records, they established a separate temple on Tython's far continent. Their subsequent work was purged so thoroughly that only fragments remain, preserved here because this archive was already hidden when the purge occurred. You request to follow this thread, curious about this earliest division in Force philosophy. The crystal matrix responds by shifting the vision to a smaller structure built into a mountainside. The architecture appears more organic than the main temples, with living plants incorporated into the stone walls. Inside, the 3 dissenting masters work with a small group of students, studying phenomena at the boundaries between life, death, and the Force itself. Their research focused on communications with entities existing beyond conventional reality. The Menkai droid explains, they theorized that the Force connected not merely all living things within our galaxy, but served as a bridge between dimensions. The vision shows their experiments, remarkably sophisticated for their era. Using kyber crystals attuned to specific resonance frequencies, they establish fleeting connections with what appears to be another plane of existence. Shadowy figures materialize briefly, similar to those you observed watching K2's gathering. They called these entities the Watchers in the Void, the Keeper says, neither fully within our reality nor entirely separate from it. The dissenting masters believed these beings possessed crucial knowledge about the true nature of the Force. The experimental chamber suddenly illuminates with blinding light as one attempted communication succeeds beyond their expectations. A fully materialized figure stands within their circle, tall and vaguely humanoid, but with proportions that seem wrong to human perception. The being raises a hand, and reality itself appears to ripple outward from its gesture. Before you can observe what happens next, the crystal matrix abruptly darkens. When the vision resumes, the mountainside temple lies in ruins. No bodies are visible, but scorch marks suggest an unleashing of enormous energy. A group from the main Temple of Balance surveys the destruction with expressions of horror and grim determination. All records of what precisely occurred were subsequently erased, the MK droid states. The official account described a tragic meditation accident resulting from dangerous experimentation with unstable force techniques. The Keeper adds, this event established the precedent for restricting certain avenues of force research. The remaining Jedi Masters determined that some knowledge was too dangerous to pursue, regardless of its potential value. You find yourself unsettled by this revelation. The foundations of what would become Jedi restrictions on certain knowledge were built not on comprehensive understanding, but on fear of the unknown. What about the prophecy fragment mentioned in the first records, you ask, recalling the cryptic phrases from the temple on Tython? The Keeper guides you to a different section of the archive, where a holographic reproduction of an ancient stone tablet rotates slowly above a pedestal. The writing matches the script you observed in the temple vision, though here it appears more complete. This tablet was discovered beneath the destroyed temple nearly a millennium after the incident, she explains. Its contents were deemed too dangerous for general knowledge and removed to a secure vault on Ossus. When the Kron supernova threatened that vault, certain preservationists ensured its contents were transferred here. The translation matrix activates, converting the ancient symbols. When the three are as one again, the veil between realms will thin. The darkness between stars grows restless with hunger. The Watchers shall return to witness the fulfillment of the cycle begun in ages past. Those who stand at the nexus of possibility must choose preservation through transformation or purity through limitation. The prophecy continues with references to the ones and a realm where time flows like water rather than marching forward like an army. Phrases describe a world between worlds and doorways through which the worthy may step to witness all possibilities. These concepts would eventually be classified as Force heresies, the MK droid notes. Teaching or researching them became punishable by expulsion from the Order. The vision shifts again, advancing several centuries. The Jedi Order has evolved, its practices more formalized but still maintaining the central philosophy of balance. Tython thrives as a center of Force learning until a new crisis emerges. The crystal matrix reveals massive storms of Force energy sweeping across the planet's surface, devastating settlements and disrupting the careful balance maintained for generations. These Force storms grow from localized disturbances to planetary catastrophes, forcing the Jedi to consider abandoning their homeworld. The cause of these Force storms remains disputed, the Keeper says. Official histories attribute them to natural fluctuations in Tython's Force nexus. However, certain restricted records suggest a different possibility. The MK droid projects additional data. Analysis of witness accounts indicates the storms began shortly after Jedi archaeologists uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the ruins of the destroyed temple. Whatever they found there was removed to the Temple of Balance, where the Council deliberated for 7 days before apparently reaching a decision that remains unrecorded. The Matrix shows the storms intensifying until Tython becomes uninhabitable. The Jedi evacuation unfolds with remarkable organization, despite the chaos, suggesting they had prepared for this possibility. Ships carrying Force users, artifacts and knowledge scatter to various worlds. This diaspora marks the beginning of the transition from Jedi to what would eventually become the Jedi Order. the Keeper explains. As the unified group fragmented across multiple worlds, their philosophies diverged accordingly. You observe how different settlement groups adapted to their new environments. Those who established temples on lush, life-rich worlds developed stronger connections to the living force. Others who settled on mineral-rich planets with strong natural energy fields focused more on cosmic force aspects. Without the centralizing influence of Tython and its balanced system, subtle shifts in philosophy began to compound. The vision follows one particular group to the world of Arsh II, where they established a settlement that would eventually be recognized as the first Jedi temple in conventional histories. Their leader, Master Rajivari, introduces significant modifications to Jedi teachings, placing greater emphasis on light aspects of the Force, while treating darkness as a temptation to be resisted rather than a natural element to be understood. Rajavari's teachings would become foundational to Jedi philosophy, the MK droid states. His personal journals preserved here reveal his motivations stemmed directly from the Tython catastrophe, which he attributed to certain Jedi delving too deeply into dark aspects of the Force. The Crystal Matrix reveals Rajivari standing before his followers, ceremonially destroying texts from the original Jedi library that dealt with what he termed dangerous knowledge. The burning scrolls contain diagrams similar to those used by the dissenting masters in their communication experiments. Thus begins the Great Purge of knowledge, the Keeper says gravely, a practice that would continue throughout Jedi history. Whenever the Council encountered Force concepts they deemed too dangerous or contrary to established doctrine. As Rajivari completes this ceremonial destruction, you notice a detail at the edge of the vision. One of his students discreetly collects ashes from the burned texts, carefully preserving them in a small container hidden within their robes. The seemingly minor act of preservation would have enormous consequences for the future of Force understanding. The vision follows this student, revealing how they secretly maintain copies of forbidden knowledge. Over decades they gathered like-minded individuals who valued complete understanding over selective knowledge, forming the kernel of what would become a hidden tradition within the emerging Jedi Order. The first iteration of the Shadows of the Path, the Keeper identifies, not to be confused with the later Jedi Shadows who hunted dark side artifacts. This group preserved knowledge the Order sought to destroy, believing that understanding came through comprehensive study rather than selective learning. As the Matrix vision fades, bringing you back to the archive chamber, your attention is drawn to a sealed vault door set into the far wall. Unlike the other sections of the archive, this door bears warning symbols in multiple ancient languages. What lies beyond that threshold, you ask? The Keeper and MK droid exchange significant glances before the droid responds. That chamber contains artifacts recovered from beneath the first Jedi temple on Arsh II. The excavation occurred in secret, undertaken by Master Lo Shu approximately 5,000 years before the Galactic Republic. His findings were deemed too disruptive to established Jedi doctrine to be made known even to the Council. Can we access it? You inquire, drawn by scholarly curiosity. The chamber responds only to certain Force signatures, the Keeper explains, specifically those descended from a now extinct Jedi lineage that maintained connections to the original Jedi philosophy of balance. Without such a signature, the protective mechanisms would destroy the contents rather than permit unauthorized access. This revelation presents a tantalizing mystery at the heart of your exploration. What knowledge was considered so dangerous that such extreme measures were taken to restrict it, and why would the protective system be keyed to a specific Jedi bloodline? As you contemplate these questions, the chronometer at your wrist pulses again, a gentle reminder of the archive's impending collapse. With so much knowledge still to explore and limited time available, you must make strategic choices about which threads of Jedi history to follow more deeply. The foundation of the Order has revealed itself to be far more complex and ambiguous than official histories suggest. What began as a balanced approach to Force understanding has already shown signs of the dogmatic restrictions that would eventually define the Jedi. And somewhere in this evolving story lies the connection to the mysterious Watchers and their interest in the development of Force philosophy. We should continue chronologically, you decide. But I want to mark this sealed vault for later investigation, if time permits. The Keeper nods agreement as the MK droid prepares the next sequence of historical records. The journey through the complete Jedi Order timeline continues, each revelation adding new dimensions to your understanding of the Force and those who dedicated their lives to its study. The third crystal matrix illuminates beneath your touch, projecting a timeline that branches and converges like a river delta across the archive chamber. Each strand represents a different group of Force users descended from the Jedi diaspora, evolving distinct philosophies based on their new environments and experiences. Following the evacuation of Tython, the unified Jedi tradition fractured into at least 17 distinct schools of Force philosophy, the MK droid explains, highlighting key nodes in the projection. This period of diversification lasted approximately 2,000 years before reconsolidation began. You focus on the strand representing Rajivari's followers on Oz 2, as they appear most directly connected to what would become the Jedi Order. The vision materializes around you, revealing a community that has evolved significantly since its founding. Stone structures rise from the island landscape, shaped not by conventional tools, but by Force manipulation of the natural environment. Students train in open-air pavilions, their exercises emphasizing control, precision, and mindfulness. Unlike the balanced approach of their Jedi ancestors, these practitioners clearly favor techniques associated with what would later be categorized as the light side of the Force. Rajivari's teachings emphasized harmony with the natural world and resistance to emotional impulses, the Keeper narrates. He believed the Force storms on Tython resulted from Jedi who explored aspects of the Force connected to passion and power. The vision centers on Rajivari himself, now elderly but still commanding respect as he addresses gathered students. The translation matrix provides his words. Our ancestors sought to contain both light and darkness within themselves, believing balance could be maintained through discipline alone. Their hubris destroyed our homeworld. We must learn from their failure. The Force offers a clear path toward peace and wisdom, but only if we resist the temptations of power gained through passion and emotion. You observe how thoroughly this teaching contradicts the original Jedi philosophy of internal balance, where the founders embraced the full spectrum of Force aspects. Rajivari's approach introduces the concept of rejecting certain elements entirely. This represents the first major theological shift toward what would become orthodox Jedi teaching, the Keeper notes. The redefinition of balance from internal equilibrium to external opposition of perceived darkness. As you continue watching, a group of students approaches Rajivari after his address. They respectfully question his interpretation, citing recovered Jedi texts that suggest the Force storms resulted not from exploring darkness, but from disrupting the natural balance between aspects. Rajivari's response appears measured but firm. He invites the questioning students to demonstrate their alternative approach, establishing what he clearly intends as a teaching moment. The students form a circle and begin a meditation technique recognizably derived from early Jedi practices, harmonizing light and dark aspects within themselves. Initially, their demonstration proceeds smoothly. The Force flows visibly around them, manifesting as patterns of light and shadow in perfect equilibrium. Then Rajivari subtly gestures to one of his loyal disciples, who approaches the circle and introduces a disruptive element, a kyber crystal deliberately misaligned to create Force discord. The students' meditation falters as they struggle to maintain balance against this external disruption. One by one, they either abandon the technique or lose control entirely, their connection to darkness momentarily overwhelming their restraint. Rajivari uses this orchestrated failure to reinforce his teaching, presenting it as evidence that the balanced approach inevitably leads to darkness when challenged. A deliberately unfair test, the Keeper observes with disapproval, yet its outcome established the foundation for millennia of Jedi dogma regarding the danger of dark side exploration. The vision shifts forward in time, showing how Rajivari's teachings spread beyond Arc 2 as his students established their own training centers on other worlds. With each generation, the distance from original Jedi philosophy widened, historical nuance replaced by simplified doctrine. The timeline projection highlights a significant convergence point approximately 15,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Representatives from several major Force traditions gather on Ossus, seeking to establish common ground in their understanding and teaching. This gathering, unlike the confrontational early meetings on Tython, proceeds with mutual respect and shared purpose. The first great convocation, the Mech droid identifies, often cited in restricted archives as the true founding of the Jedi Order, though public histories place it several thousand years later. You observe how the various traditions present their core philosophies, finding alignment in their shared reverence for the Force while negotiating differences in approach. The followers of Rajivari's teachings hold significant influence, their well-organized presentation and emphasis on service to others resonating with many attendees. A consensus emerges gradually, synthesizing elements from diverse traditions while establishing boundaries between acceptable and forbidden practices. The vision shows the drafting of what appears to be a foundational document, written simultaneously in several ancient languages. The Concordance of True Philosophy, the Keeper names it. The original Jedi Code, far more extensive than the simplified version taught to younglings in later eras. The translation matrix reveals portions of this document, describing the Force in terms both poetic and practical. Unlike the later emphasis on emotional detachment, this early code acknowledges the full spectrum of sentient experience while providing guidelines for channeling feelings constructively rather than suppressing them. Most striking is a section addressing the nature of balance, which appears to represent a compromise between traditions. The Force encompasses all aspects of existence, from serenity to passion, knowledge to mystery, harmony to chaos. The wise practitioner acknowledges this totality while choosing to embody those aspects that promote life, growth, and understanding. We reject not the existence of darkness but its dominance within ourselves and the wider galaxy. This nuanced position seems to bridge the gap between original Jedi balance and Rajivari's strict light side focus. The convocation declares this understanding the foundation of their unified tradition, which they name Jedi in modified homage to their Jedi predecessors. A more balanced beginning than most Jedi ever learned about, you observe. Indeed, the Keeper agrees. But observe what happens within 3 generations. The vision advances to show the evolution of this newly unified Jedi Order. As the founding masters pass into memory, their carefully crafted compromise gives way to increasingly rigid interpretation. The nuanced understanding of balance gradually transforms into a simpler paradigm of light versus dark, good versus evil. Without the founders to explain the subtle distinctions in their philosophy, the MK droid explains. Subsequent generations interpreted the concordance through their own cultural lenses, complex ideas simplified into actionable doctrine. You watch as teaching becomes increasingly standardized across Jedi enclaves. The emphasis shifts toward techniques that maintain calm, control emotions, and resist temptation, practices that explore passion or intensity, even in service of constructive ends, gradually disappear from the curriculum. The false conclusion solidifies. The Keeper observes. That balance means rejection of darkness rather than its integration into a harmonious whole. As this doctrinal shift occurs, the vision reveals a troubling pattern. Students who question this interpretation or demonstrate interest in forbidden knowledge face increasing scrutiny. Some are counseled to redirect their studies, others disciplined for pursuing unauthorized practices. A small but significant number abandon the order entirely, seeking understanding outside its narrowing boundaries. The Matrix shows one such departure in detail. A promising Jedi scholar named Lena Trell discovers ancient Jedi texts that contradict current teaching. When she presents her findings to her masters, she receives not curiosity but concern. They confiscate the texts for proper contextual analysis and assign her to intensive meditation to center herself in established wisdom. Frustrated but determined, Trell sneaks into the restricted archive to recover the texts, only to find them already destroyed. This act of censorship proves the breaking point for her commitment to the Order. The vision shows her leaving the Enclave under cover of darkness, taking with her only personal possessions and her memory of the forbidden knowledge. Trell would eventually establish a separate tradition on Jeddah. The MK droid notes. Her followers called themselves Guardians of the Wills, maintaining elements of original Jedi philosophy that the Jedi Order had abandoned. This pattern repeats across centuries, with various splinter groups preserving aspects of Force understanding excluded from increasingly orthodox Jedi teaching. The central library on Ossus becomes the repository for knowledge deemed suitable for preservation, while texts challenging established doctrine disappear into restricted vaults or face destruction. The Jedi did not simply forget their origins, the Keeper clarifies. They actively suppressed historical evidence that contradicted their evolving narrative. The vision highlights a particularly significant purge occurring after the 100-year darkness, when the first Sith emerged from exiled Jedi who embraced forbidden knowledge and techniques. The trauma of this schism and subsequent conflict hardened Jedi, resolved to protect their members from dark side influence. In the aftermath of the First Jedi-Sith War, the MK droid explains, the Order undertook a comprehensive review of all archived materials. Texts describing early balanced approaches were recategorized as potential dark side influences. Historical accounts suggesting the Sith originated from legitimate philosophical differences rather than corruption were sealed or destroyed. You witness this systematic revision of history, conducted not with malicious intent, but sincere belief in protecting future generations from dangerous ideas. Council members oversee the process solemnly, convinced they safeguard the galaxy by restricting access to knowledge that could lead practitioners astray. A critical juncture in Jedi development, the Keeper notes. The Order transitions from seeking understanding of the Force to protecting a specific interpretation of it. As this doctrinal consolidation unfolds, the vision reveals another discovery that shapes Jedi self-perception. Archaeologists exploring the ruins of an ancient civilization on Chandrila uncover a star map unlike any previously documented. The map reveals Force nexus points across the galaxy, including several unknown to the contemporary Jedi. When this map is compared with existing Jedi records, a startling pattern emerges. Many major Jedi temples and enclaves unknowingly stand upon these Force nexus points, suggesting their founders were intuitively drawn to these locations. This discovery reinforced the Jedi belief in their special connection to the Force, the mech droid states. They interpreted it as validation that their path aligned with the natural order of the galaxy. What the vision reveals next, however, contradicts this comfortable assumption. Further study of the map shows evidence of deliberate alteration. Several major nexus points have been erased from the public version, their locations known only to the highest-ranking masters. Why conceal this information, you ask? The Keeper's expression grows troubled, because investigation of these hidden nexus points revealed phenomena inconsistent with established Jedi teaching, places where the boundary between our reality and others grew thin, where communication with entities like the Watchers became possible, where the Force manifested in ways that defied categorization as light or dark. The vision confirms her explanation, showing Jedi explorers discovering a hidden temple on one such nexus point. Inside they find evidence of Force users who achieved abilities the Order considered impossible or forbidden, records of consciousness transfer between bodies, methods for maintaining identity after physical death beyond becoming one with the Force, techniques for peering into possible futures with remarkable clarity. Most disturbing to these explorers, the ancient practitioners responsible for these achievements show no sign of dark side corruption despite using methods the Jedi would categorize as forbidden. They appear to have maintained balance while exploring the full spectrum of Force potential. This discovery threatened the foundational Jedi belief that certain knowledge inevitably led to darkness, the Keeper explains. Rather than reconsidering their doctrine in light of this evidence, the Council classified these sites as dangerous anomalies and restricted all information about them. The vision concludes with a solemn council meeting where the decision is formalized to build containment temples over these nexus points, not to study them, but to seal them away from both Jedi and potential dark side practitioners who might exploit their unique properties. As the crystal matrix vision fades, you find yourself troubled by this revelation. The Jedi Order's development appears less like a continuous refinement of wisdom and more like a series of reactions to perceived threats, each narrowing the scope of acceptable knowledge and practice. The first false conclusion becomes entrenched, the Keeper summarizes, that certain knowledge must be restricted rather than understood, that balance means rejection rather than integration, that safety requires limitation rather than comprehensive understanding. This foundation would shape all subsequent Jedi history, establishing patterns that would repeat through millennia of the Order's existence. From this point forward, the Jedi path increasingly diverged from its origins, creating the conditions for both its greatest achievements and its most devastating failures. The fourth crystal matrix activates with a resonant hum, its surface warming beneath your fingertips. This time the transition feels different, a deeper immersion into the historical record. The archive chamber dissolves completely, your senses fully engaged in the unfolding vision of a pivotal era in Jedi development. You stand amidst the grandeur of the great Jedi library on Ossus at the height of its influence, approximately 12,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Unlike the austere functionality of later Jedi architecture, this complex displays an aesthetic splendor that takes your breath away. Soaring arches support ceilings adorned with Force-sensitive crystals that respond to the thoughts of those below, illuminating areas of interest while maintaining peaceful twilight elsewhere. The golden age of Jedi scholarship, the Keeper's voice explains, though her form remains invisible in this complete immersion. Before the militarization that accompanied the formation of the Republic, the Order primarily identified as keepers of knowledge and wisdom. Jedi scholars from dozens of species move purposefully through the vast collection, their traditional robes individualized with elements reflecting their homeworlds and personal philosophies. This diversity of expression would disappear in later eras, replaced by standardized garments emphasizing uniformity over individuality. The vision guides you to a circular chamber at the library's heart, where 9 masters constitute the Council of First Knowledge. Unlike the better-known High Council that would later govern from Coruscant, this body focused exclusively on determining what information should be preserved, taught, or restricted. Master Ardak Thorn addresses the Council. The MK droid's voice identifies a tall, silver-haired human woman who stands at the chamber's center. Her expedition to the unknown regions has recovered texts from a previously undocumented Force tradition. Thorn presents her findings with evident excitement, describing encounters with Force users who call themselves navigators of the Veil. According to her account, these practitioners develop techniques for perceiving possible futures with unprecedented clarity, without the obscuring influence of constantly shifting probabilities that limited Jedi foresight. Their method involves neither light nor dark, as we understand these aspects. Thorn explains to the attentive council. Rather, they achieve a state of perfect neutrality, becoming vessels through which the Force flows unimpeded by personal desire or fear. The council members exchange troubled glances as she continues her report. When Fawn presents the actual texts containing these techniques, a palpable tension fills the chamber. The head of the council, a Karmasi named Yulon Mir, requests that she step outside while they deliberate. The vision follows you into the council chamber as they discuss Fawn's discovery in her absence. Their debate reveals not scientific skepticism, but ideological concern. These techniques require abandoning our foundational understanding of the Force, one master argues. To achieve this neutral state means relinquishing our commitment to the light. Another counters, but if their practitioners show no signs of corruption, could our understanding be incomplete? The ancient Jedi spoke of balance in ways we have perhaps oversimplified. Yulon Mir listens to both perspectives before delivering his judgment. For generations we have taught that neutrality in the Force is impossible, that one must choose the light or inevitably fall to darkness. To incorporate these teachings would undermine the philosophical foundation upon which our order stands. The Council votes by significant majority to classify the Navigator texts as restricted knowledge, accessible only to masters who have demonstrated unwavering commitment to established doctrine. Master Fawn herself is assigned to extended meditation and counseling to address her concerning enthusiasm for these unorthodox concepts. A pattern repeating across centuries, the Keeper's voice observes, knowledge that challenges doctrine is not evaluated on its merits, but on its conformity to existing beliefs. The vision shifts to follow the fate of the Navigator texts. Rather than being stored in the restricted vault as officially mandated, they are intercepted by a curator who belongs to a group only identified by a subtle hand sign exchanged with a colleague. These individuals ensure a complete copy reaches a hidden repository beneath the public library. The second circle, the Menke droid, identifies evolution of the original shadows of the path, operating as a secret society within the Order itself. Their mission to preserve knowledge the Council would restrict or destroy, maintaining the complete tapestry of Force understanding for future generations who might be ready to receive it. This revelation transforms your understanding of Jedi history, not a monolithic institution evolving along a single path, but a complex interplay between public doctrine and hidden preservation, official restrictions and clandestine exploration. The vision advances to a crucial period known in conventional histories as the 100-Year Darkness. Following a philosophical schism, far more nuanced than later accounts would admit, a group of Jedi break from the Order to pursue understanding without the restrictions of Council oversight. These exiles would eventually become the first Sith, the Keeper explains, though their initial separation was not an embrace of evil as later portrayed, but a rebellion against what they perceived as intellectual tyranny. You witness a founding moment rarely discussed in any history. A gathering of the exiled Jedi on a remote world where they formally renounce their former identity and establish a new tradition. Their leader, a charismatic master named Ajunta Pol, presents a compelling vision of Force understanding unlimited by arbitrary restrictions. We leave behind not the pursuit of wisdom, but the chains placed upon that pursuit. Pol declares to his followers, the Jedi claim to serve the Force while refusing to explore its full nature. We will accept no such limitations. All aspects of the Force shall be our domain, all knowledge our right. This balanced beginning soon gives way to corruption, not because dark knowledge is inherently corrupting as Jedi doctrine claimed, but because their rebellion against restriction extends to moral constraints as well. Without ethical frameworks to temper their exploration, power becomes its own justification. Techniques developed for understanding lead to domination instead. The original Sith fall confirms and contradicts Jedi fears simultaneously, the Keeper observes. Unrestricted knowledge did lead to darkness, yet not because the knowledge itself was dark, but because it was pursued without ethical foundation. The ensuing conflict between Jedi and the emerging Sith reshapes both traditions. The Jedi, vindicated in their caution, doubled down on restrictions. The Great Library partially transitions from center of learning to fortress, protecting dangerous knowledge from misuse. Training emphasizes emotional regulation and detachment from desires that might lead to temptation. Meanwhile, the evolving Sith embrace passion and ambition as their philosophical core, deliberately inverting Jedi restraint. What began as a movement for intellectual freedom calcifies into its own rigid doctrine, defined primarily in opposition to Jedi teaching rather than independent exploration. The vision guides you through the aftermath of this first great conflict, revealing how the Jedi Order underwent fundamental transformation in response. The Council of First Knowledge yields prominence to more militant leadership focused on defending the galaxy against dark side threats. The scholar-diplomat ideal of Jedi identity gradually shifts toward guardian warrior archetypes. A pivotal moment in the militarization of the Jedi, the MK droid notes, the transition from seekers of wisdom to soldiers of light begins here, millennia before the Clone Wars would complete it. As this transformation unfolds, the vision reveals the parallel evolution of the Second Circle. What began as an informal network of knowledge preservationists develops into a structured organization operating in the shadows of the Order. They establish protocols for identifying potential members, tests to confirm philosophical alignment before revealing their existence, secure methods for preserving and transmitting restricted knowledge. The Matrix zooms in on an initiation ceremony conducted in a hidden chamber beneath the reconstructed library. A promising Jedi Knight named Kieran Vors stands before a semicircle of hooded figures, having passed a series of trials designed to test both ability and ethical framework. Do you seek knowledge for power or understanding for wisdom? The leader asks. Neither power nor wisdom alone fulfills the potential of a Force user. Vos responds, I seek completion of the circle, the full understanding that can only come from embracing all aspects of the Force while maintaining internal balance. Satisfied with this answer, the Second Circle reveals their true purpose, showing Vers their hidden archive of knowledge preserved from council restriction or destruction. Texts from traditions purged from official history, techniques developed by Force users who followed paths divergent from Jedi orthodoxy, records of encounters with entities existing beyond conventional reality. We preserve what others would destroy, the leader explains, not to undermine the Order, but to ensure that when the time comes for renewal, the foundations will remain intact. This ceremony reveals the Second Circle's ultimate purpose, clarifying why such an organization would operate within an institution whose policies they fundamentally question. They see themselves not as rebels, but as guardians of the Order's true heritage, maintaining connections to origins deliberately obscured by the Council's selective history. The second open loop emerges fully. The Keeper notes as the vision continues. A shadow tradition existing within the public order, maintaining knowledge contradicting official doctrine while appearing to uphold it. The vision advances to show how the Second Circle operates across centuries, adapting to changing circumstances while maintaining their core mission. When the Jedi relocate their primary temple to Coruscant after the formation of the Galactic Republic, the hidden society splits into cells to maintain secrecy in the more centralized environment. When the Great Sith War brings renewed restrictions on Force knowledge, they develop increasingly sophisticated methods for preserving and transmitting forbidden wisdom. Most remarkably, the Matrix reveals how members of the Second Circle occasionally rise to positions on the Jedi Council itself, subtly influencing policy from within while protecting their hidden brothers and sisters. Never numerous enough to change fundamental doctrine, they nonetheless prevent the most extreme restrictions and preserve space for philosophical diversity within carefully maintained boundaries. Their existence explains certain inconsistencies in recorded Jedi history, the mecha droid observes. Periods of relative openness interrupted by renewed orthodoxy, seemingly contradictory council decisions, unexpected preservation of knowledge that should have been purged according to stated policy. The timeline accelerates to highlight key moments in the Second Circle's hidden history. During the New Sith Wars, when fear drives the Council toward unprecedented restrictions, Circle members ensure critical knowledge survives by establishing secondary archives on remote worlds. When reformers like Master Fannius leave the Order to pursue independent study during the 100-Year Darkness, Circle members maintain clandestine communication to distinguish genuinely destructive dark-side corruption from legitimate philosophical exploration. Most significantly, the vision reveals the Second Circle's connection to anomalous force nexus points across the galaxy. While the Jedi Council builds containment temples over these locations, restricting access to prevent misuse of their unique properties, Circle members maintain secret passages, allowing continued study under careful protocols. The Matrix focuses on one such location, a temple on Lothal that conventional records describe as a simple training facility. The vision reveals its true nature as a containment structure built over an ancient portal, a gateway to what Circle members call the world between worlds, one of several nexus points where the fabric of reality thins, the Keeper explains. Places where time and space operate according to different rules than the physical universe we normally perceive. Circle members conduct careful research at these sites, developing techniques for navigating the boundaries between normal reality and these force-saturated domains. Unlike the unrestrained exploration that corrupted early Sith, their work follows strict ethical guidelines, emphasizing observation over manipulation, understanding over exploitation. Their research suggests these nexus points connect to the dwelling place of the Watchers, the MK droid notes, entities who observe Force users across time, but rarely interact directly with our reality. This connection to the mysterious observers first glimpsed in the Jedi founding vision adds new dimension to the Circle's purpose, not merely preserving knowledge for its own sake, but maintaining awareness of a cosmic context most Jedi never suspect exists. The vision shifts to a rare direct encounter between Circle members and these enigmatic beings. During a carefully prepared ceremony at the Lothal Temple, 3 masters achieve temporary alignment with the world between worlds. Their perception expands beyond normal constraints, allowing them to perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. In this enhanced state, they become aware of observers watching from what appears to be a network of pathways connecting different points in space and time. These watchers notice the Master's perception and for a brief moment direct their attention specifically toward them. No words are exchanged, but information transfers nonetheless, a download of conceptual understanding too vast for immediate comprehension. When the Masters return to normal consciousness, they spend months processing this experience, extracting fragments of coherent meaning from the overwhelming whole. We are not the first iteration of Force users in this galaxy. One Master records in a journal secured in the deepest vault of the Circle's hidden archive. Civilizations rise and fall in great cycles, each discovering the Force anew, developing traditions to understand it, eventually falling prey to their own limitations. The Watchers observe these cycles, perhaps guiding them subtly towards some purpose we cannot yet comprehend. This revelation transforms the Circle's understanding of their mission, not merely preserving knowledge against institutional limitation, but maintaining continuity between cycles of civilization, ensuring that when the current Jedi Order eventually falls, as all institutions must, the seeds of renewal will survive. A profound expansion of perspective, the Keeper observes. From guardians of institutional memory to caretakers of galactic wisdom across epochs, the vision shows how this understanding shapes Circle operations through subsequent centuries. They establish contingency plans for preserving their archives through various catastrophic scenarios. They develop techniques for identifying potential Force users outside institutional structures who might carry tradition forward if the Order collapses. They create methods for encoding crucial knowledge in seemingly innocuous cultural artifacts that would survive even deliberate purges. As the Matrix approaches more recent eras, it reveals the Circle's growing concern about trends within the Jedi Order, the increasing integration with Republic political structures, the subtle shift from servants of the Force to servants of the government, the gradual erosion of philosophical education in favor of practical training producing effective peacekeepers. They foresaw potential catastrophe, the Mankey droid explains, not from external threat, but internal calcification, an order increasingly defined by what it opposed rather than what it sought to understand. The final sequence shows a Circle conclave held secretly during the High Republic era, approximately 2 centuries before the Clone Wars. Representatives from cells across the galaxy gather to address growing concerns about the future. Their discussion reveals not panic but strategic preparation, recognition that their longest-standing contingency plans may soon become necessary. The Order has survived previous challenges. An elderly Togruta master reminds the gathering. The Sith Wars, the Dark Age, the Brotherhood of Darkness. Each time, renewal followed defeat. But previous threats were external. Counters a young human woman. The danger now lies in how far we have drifted from our original purpose. We defend the Republic with ever greater zeal, while neglecting the deeper questions of Force understanding that once defined us. The Conclave reaches consensus on acceleration of preservation efforts. More knowledge transferred to secure locations beyond Republic space. Increased recruitment focusing on individuals with strong psychometric abilities who might preserve wisdom through direct Force connection rather than physical records. Establishment of independent training centers disguised as cultural or philosophical retreats where Circle teachings could continue even if the Order itself collapsed. As the vision concludes, returning you gradually to awareness of the archive chamber, you recognize that this hidden tradition represents far more than a footnote in Jedi history. The Second Circle maintained connections to the Order's origins that official doctrine deliberately obscured, preserving the possibility of eventual return to balance rather than perpetual opposition between light and dark. This knowledge transforms our understanding of the Jedi timeline. You observe as the Keeper and MK droid come back into focus before you. Indeed, the Keeper agrees. The history you learned contains only what the Council wished future generations to know. The complete timeline reveals a far more complex reality, with wisdom preserved in shadows when it could not flourish in light. The chronometer at your wrist pulses, its rhythm slightly faster than before. The archive's structural integrity continues to deteriorate, emphasizing the urgency of your exploration. Like the Second Circle itself, you race against time to preserve knowledge before catastrophe claims it forever. We should explore the Circle's records of significant crises in Jedi history, you suggest. Moments when hidden knowledge influenced events without public acknowledgement. As the MK droid prepares the next crystal matrix, you take a moment to center yourself through meditation. The constantly shifting understanding of Jedi history challenges preconceptions you brought to this exploration. Each revelation adds complexity to what seems straightforward, transforming heroes and villains into flawed individuals shaped by institutional forces beyond their control. The complete timeline emerging from these hidden records tells not a simple story of light struggling against darkness, but the nuanced evolution of beings grappling with cosmic power they only partially comprehend. Their successes and failures, wisdom and blindness, all contribute to the tapestry of Force understanding stretching across millennia toward a future still unfolding. With renewed focus, you prepare to continue this journey through the depths of Jedi history, aware that each revelation brings both enlightenment and further questions. The true nature of the Force and those who dedicate their lives to its study remains as mysterious and compelling as when the first Force sensitives looked up at the stars and sensed the connections binding all living things together. The fifth crystal matrix responds differently than its predecessors. Rather than projecting a linear historical narrative, it fragments into multiple simultaneous visions surrounding you in a sphere of overlapping moments spanning diverse eras. The effect is initially disorienting until you recognize the pattern connecting these seemingly disparate scenes. The Reformations, the Keeper's voice explains as the visions stabilize. 7 distinct periods when the Jedi Order fundamentally restructured its philosophy and practices in response to catastrophic challenges. The Man-K droid elaborates. These events have been documented separately in conventional histories, but never connected as a recurring pattern with common underlying causes. The fragmented visions begin to organize chronologically, allowing you to observe each Reformation in sequence. The first occurs approximately 7,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, following the devastating 100-year darkness that gave rise to the original Sith. You witness the Jedi Council gathered in emergency session after their Pyrrhic victory over Sith forces. The cost has been enormous, with thousands of Jedi lost and numerous worlds devastated. The survivors debate how to prevent such tragedy from recurring. Our understanding of the Force must evolve in response to this threat, declares Grand Master Bannock Kalrada, a diminutive being with skin like polished obsidian. The philosophical latitude that allowed the original schism has proven too dangerous. The Council institutes sweeping changes to Jedi training and doctrine. Emotional discipline receives greater emphasis, with techniques focused on detachment from connections that might lead to passion. Study of ancient Force practices is restricted to masters who have demonstrated unwavering commitment to light side philosophy. The organizational structure becomes more hierarchical, with clearer lines of authority from Padawan to Knight to Master to Council. The First Reformation established the template all others would follow, the Keeper notes. Crisis followed by restriction, narrowing, rather than expansion of Force understanding. The vision transitions to the aftermath of this Reformation, revealing its unintended consequences. As training becomes more standardized and restricted, the diversity of Force expression diminishes. Techniques requiring emotional engagement or drawing on aspects categorized as borderline disappear from official curriculum. The Jedi become more homogeneous in their approach, more predictable in their methods. Standardization brought unity, but reduced adaptability. The MK droid observes. Strengths became more pronounced, but so did collective blind spots. The second fragmented vision manifests, showing the Reformation following the Great Hyperspace War. After another devastating conflict with Sith forces, the Jedi once again respond by increasing restrictions and centralization. Training age limits are implemented, with Force-sensitive children identified and removed from their families at increasingly younger ages to prevent emotional attachments from forming. This pattern repeats across each Reformation. The new Sith Wars lead to further militarization of the Order and closer alignment with Republic political structures. The Ruusan Reformation transforms the Jedi from independent philosophical organization to formal Republic institution, with the Grand Master reporting directly to the Supreme Chancellor. Each crisis and response narrows the scope of Jedi practice, distance from original Jedi balance growing with each iteration. What began as a tradition embracing the full spectrum of Force understanding gradually transforms into a highly specialized approach focusing on specific aspects while rejecting others entirely. The cumulative effect across millennia was a fundamental shift in how the Jedi perceived their purpose. The Keeper explains, from seekers of wisdom to defenders against darkness, from students of the Force to soldiers in a cosmic struggle. As you observe this pattern, a deeper significance emerges. Each Reformation coincides with the discovery or rediscovery of certain Force techniques or philosophical concepts that challenge established doctrine. Rather than incorporating these expanded understandings, the Order systematically classifies them as potential dark side influences and restricts their study. The pattern transcends coincidence, you realize aloud. Each crisis provided justification for suppressing knowledge that threatened doctrinal foundations. The mech droid confirms your insight. Analysis of restricted council minutes reveals explicit discussions of using post-crisis periods to implement controversial restrictions that would face resistance during peacetime. Grandmaster Valora specifically referenced utilizing the clarifying effect of conflict to purge philosophical distractions from the Order. This calculated approach to knowledge suppression transforms your understanding of Jedi history, not simply well-intentioned protectors, occasionally making mistakes, but an institution systematically narrowing its perspective, using each crisis to justify further departure from original balance toward increasingly rigid specialization. The crystal matrix shifts focus to reveal what conventional histories never mention: the consistent presence of the second circle operating through each reformation. As official Jedi doctrine becomes more restricted, this shadow tradition expands its preservation efforts. During periods when certain knowledge would be purged from main archives, Circle members ensure copies reach secret repositories. When specific training becomes forbidden, they maintain its transmission through carefully hidden lineages. The Circle served as counterbalance to institutional narrowing, the Keeper observes, maintaining connections to paths not taken, wisdom officially abandoned. The most profound revelation emerges from a vision of Circle Masters analyzing the pattern of reformations. Meeting in a hidden chamber beneath the Coruscant Temple, approximately 500 years before the Clone Wars, they compare records spanning thousands of years, seeking deeper understanding of the cycle. The pattern extends beyond coincidence or institutional politics, concludes Master Terra Sinubi, who history would remember as a conventional Jedi while concealing his Circle leadership. Each reformation occurs within a decade of significant astronomical events involving Force Nexus worlds. The resonance pattern suggests influence beyond normal causality. This observation leads to the Circle's most radical theory, recorded in journals secured in their deepest vault, that the Force itself orchestrates these cycles of knowledge restriction and preservation, using both institutional Jedi and hidden Circle as instruments in a grand design beyond their comprehension. Consider the possibility, wrote Circle leader Cor Vientis 50 years before the Clone Wars, that the light requires the dark as counterbalance, just as our hidden tradition provides counterweight to institutional rigidity. Perhaps the cycle of conflict, restriction, preservation, and eventual renewal serves a cosmic purpose we glimpse only in fragments. This perspective fundamentally recontextualizes Jedi history, suggesting that even their greatest failures might serve a larger pattern of Force balance. The apparent triumph of light or dark in specific eras becomes less significant than the continuous dance between opposing aspects, each incomplete without the other. The crystal matrix shifts to reveal another layer of this complex tapestry, focusing on technology recovered during a classified mission to wild space. Circle representatives accompanying a standard Jedi exploration team discover artifacts clearly originating beyond the known galaxy, constructed by beings capable of manipulating the Force with techniques unlike any in recorded history. Evidence of external influence, the Menke droid notes. The Circle hypothesis suggested advanced Force users from beyond known space occasionally introduced elements catalyzing significant developments in galactic Force traditions. The recovered technology includes data storage devices containing information incomprehensible to conventional analysis. When examined by Circle members with particular sensitivity to psychometric readings, these devices reveal glimpses of civilizations where the Force manifests in ways fundamentally different from known galactic traditions. Most significant among these revelations, a method for stabilizing consciousness after physical death, maintaining identity rather than merging with the cosmic Force. This technique, requiring neither light nor dark alignment but perfect balance between aspects, would eventually be independently rediscovered by Master Qui-Gon Jinn thousands of years later through study of ancient texts preserved by Circle members. The capacity to retain individual consciousness while becoming one with the Force, the Keeper explains, represents perhaps the most significant suppressed discovery in Jedi history. The Council classified all research on this possibility as forbidden, fearing it represented unnatural attachment to individual existence. The vision guides you through the Circle's clandestine efforts to preserve this knowledge, despite official prohibition. They recognize its transformative potential, not as a means of achieving immortality for selfish purposes, but as a pathway for wisdom to transcend generational boundaries, allowing direct transmission of knowledge across centuries. Their research progresses slowly, hampered by secrecy and limited resources. Occasional breakthroughs occur when particularly gifted individuals manage partial success, maintaining consciousness briefly after death before dissolution. Each such achievement advances understanding incrementally, building toward eventual mastery of the technique. The conventional history records no such research, you observe. Official doctrine maintained that joining with the Force meant loss of individual identity, with no alternative possible. Precisely why this knowledge proved so threatening, the Keeper responds. It contradicted a fundamental tenet of Jedi teaching about the ultimate nature of existence. The Matrix shifts to reveal a council meeting where this very question arises through the report of a master who experienced communication with a deceased colleague during meditation. Rather than investigating this phenomenon, the Council categorizes it as a Force vision without literal truth, a symbolic representation rather than actual contact with a preserved consciousness. This dismissal exemplifies the Order's approach to phenomena contradicting established doctrine. Rather than adjusting understanding to incorporate new evidence, they reinterpret evidence to maintain doctrinal stability. This pattern repeats across centuries, creating an increasingly brittle philosophical framework vulnerable to fundamental challenges. The Crystal Matrix expands its revelation to show how this pattern extends beyond specific techniques to encompass the Jedi relationship with Force nexus points across the galaxy. The Order officially acknowledges certain locations as strong in the Force, establishing temples at sites like Ilum and Jeddah. However, they systematically obscure the existence of nexus points exhibiting anomalous properties that challenge conventional understanding. You witness one such cover-up in detail. A Jedi exploration team discovers a hidden temple on Mortis, where the boundary between physical and metaphysical realities blurs. Inside, they encounter Force manifestations powerful enough to take physical form, entities embodying aspects of the Force itself, rather than merely channeling its energy. The team's report to the Council triggers immediate classification at the highest security level. Rather than incorporating this discovery into their understanding of the Force's nature, the Council declares the planet restricted, fabricating navigational hazards to discourage further exploration. The original team undergoes memory adjustment through specialized Force techniques, leaving only vague recollections of an unsuccessful mission. The Circle maintained the complete record, the Men-K droid notes, including coordinates, later provided to Master Kenobi, Skywalker, and Tano when their mission brought them near that system, though none understood the significance of this apparent navigational anomaly until directly experiencing Mortis themselves. This systematic suppression of knowledge, challenging established doctrine, extends to communication with Force entities beyond conventional understanding. When Jedi occasionally encounter the Watchers or similar beings existing primarily in Force realms rather than physical space, these experiences are consistently categorized as hallucinations or symbolic visions rather than literal contacts. The institutional Jedi gradually defined reality itself to exclude phenomena contradicting their doctrinal framework, the Keeper observes, limiting not just what knowledge they pursued, but what experiences they acknowledged as legitimate. The Crystal Matrix reveals how this narrowing perspective eventually left the Order vulnerable to manipulation by those aware of these blind spots. Darth Sidious specifically exploited Jedi limitations in Force perception, operating in psychological and metaphysical frequencies they had trained themselves to ignore. The significant revelation emerges fully, the Keeper says, as the fragmented visions coalesce into unified understanding. The Jedi Order's greatest vulnerability arose not from external threats but internal rigidity, not weakness but specialized strength that became limitation when circumstances changed. You witness a poignant scene from the final days of the Republic. Master Yoda meditates deeply in his private chamber, troubled by growing darkness clouding Force perception. For a brief moment, his exceptional connection to the living Force penetrates the veil of limitation created by centuries of doctrinal narrowing. He glimpses the broader reality that the Order's path has led them far from balance, specializing in light aspects while leaving them blind to subtle manipulations through channels they refuse to acknowledge. "There is more to the Force than we have allowed ourselves to know," he murmurs to himself. But centuries of training and institutional momentum cannot be overcome in a moment of insight. The Order continues along its established path toward destruction, unable to adapt to threats operating beyond their narrowed perception. As this revelation settles into your understanding, the Menke droid adds crucial context. The Circle anticipated this vulnerability. Their preparations for preservation through the coming darkness began centuries before the Clone Wars, accelerating as signs of the Order's impending fall accumulated. The final vision from this crystal matrix shows Circle members executing long-established contingency plans as the Purge unfolds. Knowledge preserved in hidden repositories across the galaxy, training methods encoded in cultural practices that would survive political suppression, Force-sensitive children identified and placed with guardians who would protect them until safer times. Seeds of renewal planted throughout the galaxy, awaiting the right conditions to flourish again. The Circle understood that destruction, like creation, forms part of the cosmic cycle. The Keeper explains as the vision fades. They prepared not to prevent the Order's fall, but to ensure its wisdom would survive to inform whatever arose from its ashes. This perspective fundamentally transforms your understanding of the Jedi timeline. Not a straight line of progress interrupted by tragedy, but a spiral of recurring patterns, each cycle incorporating elements from those before, while manifesting unique variations. The fall of the Order represents not merely an ending, but a necessary clearing before renewal, part of the Force's grand design, rather than its failure. As the crystal matrix powers down, returning you fully to the archive chamber, you find yourself processing the profound implications of these revelations. The Jedi you knew from official histories represent only a partial truth, one perspective in a far more complex narrative of beings struggling to understand cosmic forces beyond complete comprehension. We should explore how the Circle influenced events during the final years of the Republic, you suggest. The connections between their preserved knowledge and the path forward for Force understanding after the Order's fall. The Keeper nods agreement as the MK droid prepares the next crystal matrix. Your journey through the complete Jedi timeline continues, each revelation adding depth and nuance to this ancient legacy of light, darkness, and the eternal search for balance between them. The sixth crystal matrix requires both your touch and a specific sequence of Force energy channeled through your fingertips. The Keeper guides you through the necessary pattern, explaining that this security measure protects information deemed sensitive even within the hidden archive. As the activation sequence completes, the matrix emits a low harmonic tone that resonates with the kyber crystals embedded throughout the chamber. We now approach the most closely guarded knowledge. The Keeper warns as the vision begins to materialize. Connections the Circle identified across millennia, patterns invisible to those examining isolated events. The chamber transforms into a vast three-dimensional star map of the galaxy. But unlike conventional navigational displays, this projection shows more than celestial bodies. Luminous threads connect various systems, representing not hyperspace routes, but Force currents flowing between worlds. Pulsing nodes mark Force nexus points of varying intensity, some blazing brilliantly, others glowing with subtle persistence. Most remarkably, the map includes a temporal dimension. As you observe, the galaxy rotates through thousands of years of history in accelerated sequence. Force currents shift and flow like rivers changing course. Nexus points intensify or diminish in response to events occurring on their surfaces. The entire galactic force ecosystem reveals itself as a dynamic, interconnected whole rather than a collection of isolated locations. The cosmic force tapestry, the MK droid identifies, compiled from observations spanning 25,000 years, primarily by Circle members with rare sensitivities to macro force patterns. This comprehensive visualization reveals relationships between seemingly unconnected events across Jedi history. The destruction of the Jedi homeworld Tython corresponds with the awakening of previously dormant Force nexuses on Ilum and Arc 2. The rise of the First Sith Empire coincides with subtle shifts in Force currents throughout the core worlds. The suppression of Force traditions during various Republic expansions correlates with diminished overall Force sensitivity across affected regions. The Circle discovered what no individual Jedi lifetime could perceive, the Keeper explains. The Force responds to conscious interaction on a galactic scale, adjusting its manifestations to maintain some form of equilibrium across the whole. This revelation transforms understanding of causality in Force development. Major shifts in Jedi or Sith philosophy didn't occur in isolation, but as responses to changes in how the Force manifested galactically. What appeared as independent decisions by influential masters were often unconscious adaptations to shifting Force conditions they sensed but couldn't articulate. Consider the Ruusan Reformation, the MK droid suggests, highlighting that period in the temporal display. Conventional history attributes the significant philosophical shift to Grand Master Fay Coven's response to the devastation of the new Sith Wars. However, observe the Force current patterns preceding these events. The display shows how Force currents throughout the galaxy experienced unprecedented disruption approximately 50 years before the final Ruusan conflict. These disturbances created subtle pressure on Force-sensitive individuals, influencing their philosophical development without their conscious awareness. Master Coven believed she was responding solely to historical events, the Keeper notes. In reality, both she and her Sith counterparts were instruments of larger Force patterns seeking new equilibrium after cosmic disruption. This perspective fundamentally reframes the agency of individuals in Force history, not diminishing their choices but contextualizing them within cosmic patterns beyond individual perception. The Jedi and Sith appear less as opposing architects of galactic destiny and more as complementary expressions of the Force's own evolutionary process. The Matrix vision zooms toward the Outer Rim, focusing on a region rarely mentioned in any historical record. Here, at the galaxy's edge, the map reveals unusual Force patterns, unlike those in more populated regions. Rather than flowing in predictable currents between established nexus points, these energies behave erratically, sometimes appearing to extend beyond the galactic boundary before retracting. The anomalous periphery, the MK droid identifies, first documented by Jedi explorers before the exodus from Tython, subsequently investigated by specialized Circle members approximately once per century. The display shows how this region became the focus of intensive Circle research during periods when institutional Jedi attention focused elsewhere. While the Order concentrated on core world politics or Sith conflicts, Circle representatives quietly explored these mysterious fluctuations, developing theories explaining their unusual characteristics. Their most compelling hypothesis emerged approximately 1,000 years before the Clone Wars. The Keeper explains, as the vision focuses on a specific expedition. A joint mission including members from 7 different Circle cells spent 5 standard years mapping Force patterns in this region. You witness this expedition as they document a remarkable phenomenon, Force energy appearing to flow into the galaxy from external sources, not continuously, but in patterns suggesting distinct events or interventions. The team establishes monitoring stations on uninhabited worlds, recording these influxes over extended periods to identify recurring patterns. Their findings shake fundamental assumptions about the Force itself. Rather than a closed system contained within the galaxy, their data suggests external influences periodically affecting Force manifestation. More concerning, these influences appear non-random, exhibiting characteristics consistent with deliberate action rather than natural phenomena. The hidden truth begins to emerge. The Keeper says softly that our galaxy exists in connection with others through Force bonds we barely comprehend, and entities beyond our understanding occasionally interact with our Force ecosystem. This discovery connects directly to references in ancient Jedi prophecies about the darkness between stars and watchers returning. The expedition concludes that the enigmatic observers sporadically witnessed throughout Jedi history likely originate from these external Force connections, monitoring galactic Force development for purposes unknown. The Matrix shifts to show how Circle leadership responded to this profoundly disruptive information. After extended deliberation, they classify it as Horizon Echo knowledge, restricted to the highest level of Circle initiation, not from fear of misuse, but concern that premature dissemination might disrupt the natural development of Force understanding within the galaxy. They recognize that some truths must be approached gradually, the Menkai droid explains. Introducing such fundamental revisions to Force cosmology without proper foundation could destabilize rather than enhance understanding. The vision advances through subsequent Circle investigations, building on these initial discoveries. Each generation adds detail to their understanding of external Force connections while maintaining strict protocols limiting knowledge dissemination. They develop specialized training for members working in the anomalous periphery, techniques for protecting consciousness during encounters with non-standard Force manifestations. Most significantly, they establish communication methods designed to interact safely with the Watchers. Not technology, but Force techniques, allowing temporary alignment with perception frequencies outside normal consciousness. Through centuries of incremental advancement, they achieve limited success, receiving fragmented information from these enigmatic entities. What they learned transformed Circle understanding of galactic Force history. The Keeper continues as the vision shifts to show their accumulated knowledge, that our galaxy experienced previous cycles of Force civilization rise and fall, each developing distinct traditions before eventually collapsing or transforming beyond recognition. The Matrix displays a reconstructed timeline of these cycles, extending far beyond conventional galactic history. Civilizations rising, flourishing, collapsing in patterns spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Some dominated by light aspects, others embracing darkness, still others achieving temporary balance before environmental or cosmic events disrupted their development. The current Jedi-Sith paradigm represents merely the latest iteration in this grand cycle. The MK droid observes, one expression of galactic Force awareness among countless others across cosmic time. This revelation fundamentally recontextualizes current conflicts within near-infinite perspective. The struggle between Jedi and Sith appears not as the definitive battle between cosmic forces, but one chapter in an ongoing evolutionary process. The fall of either tradition becomes less catastrophic when viewed as part of natural cycles of renewal rather than absolute triumph or defeat. The vision focuses next on another Circle discovery with profound implications. Evidence suggesting conscious influence on these cyclical patterns. The Watchers appear not merely as passive observers, but participants in Force evolution, occasionally introducing catalyzing elements that alter developmental trajectories. Circle researchers identified at least 7 historical instances where technological or philosophical advancements appeared without clear antecedents, the Keeper explains. Knowledge seemingly introduced from external sources rather than developed through normal evolutionary processes. You witness specific examples of these interventions across Jedi history. The sudden appearance of holocron technology during the early Republic era, with functioning examples predating any developmental prototypes. The introduction of certain lightsaber crystal attunement techniques that fundamentally transformed Jedi weapon philosophy. The emergence of specific force healing methods that defied conventional understanding of life energy manipulation. Each intervention occurred at critical junctures in Force tradition development. The mech droid notes, often when existing paradigms faced existential challenges requiring adaptive transformation. This pattern suggests purpose behind external influence, not random interference but calibrated adjustments supporting continued Force evolution. The Circle hypothesized that these interventions served to prevent terminal stagnation or catastrophic imbalance that might permanently damage the galaxy's Force ecosystem. The Matrix shifts to reveal the Circle's most closely guarded discovery, one so profound that knowledge of it remained restricted to only the highest-ranking members in each generation. During a rare astronomical alignment approximately 500 years before the Clone Wars, a specialized Circle team achieved unprecedented communication clarity with Watcher entities, receiving information that fundamentally transformed their understanding of galactic purpose. The Wills, the Keeper identifies as the vision reveals ancient beings existing primarily in Force realms rather than physical space. Neither fully corporeal nor entirely non-material, they maintain the cosmic journal documenting Force evolution across multiple galaxies. According to information received during this rare communication, the Wills serve as custodians of knowledge, transcending individual civilizations. They record the ongoing story of Force development, occasionally guiding its evolution through subtle intervention when natural processes require assistance. Not imposing specific outcomes, but ensuring continuation of the evolutionary cycle itself. Most significantly, the Wills revealed that the current galactic Force paradigm approached a critical transition point. The Jedi-Sith dichotomy had reached its natural conclusion, having explored the developmental possibilities of strict light-dark separation. The coming era would necessarily involve transformation toward new Force understanding, transcending this binary opposition. They foresaw the fall of both Jedi and Sith traditions, the Men-K droid explains, not as tragedy but necessary clearing before new growth, like forest fires creating space for ecological renewal. This revelation explains the Circle's seemingly paradoxical approach during the Republic's final era. While preserving Jedi knowledge against coming darkness, they simultaneously prepared for emergence of new Force traditions that would transcend conventional Jedi limitations, not merely restoring what would be lost, but creating conditions for evolution beyond what had existed. The Matrix shows how this understanding influenced Circle operations across their final centuries. They maintain traditional preservation efforts while simultaneously identifying Force-sensitive individuals with potential to transcend light-dark dichotomy. They established hidden training centers exploring balanced Force approaches outside Jedi or Sith paradigms. They preserved ancient Jedi teachings about internal equilibrium rather than external opposition. They prepared not for restoration but transformation. The Keeper summarizes, understanding that the cycle required both destruction and renewal, both ending and beginning. This perspective illuminates the Circle's response to prophecies about bringing balance to the Force. While the Jedi Council interpreted balance as elimination of darkness, the Circle recognized a more profound meaning, transcendence of the artificial separation between aspects that should exist in dynamic equilibrium rather than perpetual conflict. The vision reveals a final crucial discovery connecting these cosmic patterns to the mysterious vault sealed by extinct Jedi lineage markers. Circle research identified this lineage not as genetically distinct but specifically engineered through ancient Force techniques to maintain balanced connection to both light and dark aspects. These individuals could safely access knowledge too dangerous for those aligned exclusively with either light or darkness. The vault contains information about transition between Force paradigms, the MK droid explains. Knowledge relevant only during periods of fundamental transformation, sealed until such time as appropriate recipients emerge. This context explains why the vault responds only to specific Force signatures matching the balanced lineage pattern. Its contents remain protected, not from universal access, but premature access, awaiting individuals capable of transcending the light-dark dichotomy that defined the Jedi-Sith era. The Matrix vision expands to its grandest scale, showing how these hidden truths connect individual events across millennia into coherent patterns. The cyclical rise and fall of Force traditions, the periodic interventions by external entities ensuring continued evolution, the gradual movement towards increasingly sophisticated understanding of the Force's true nature beyond simplified categorizations. The third open loop emerges fully. The Keeper observes the existence of cosmic purpose, transcending individual or institutional understanding, a Force design operating across timescales beyond conventional perception. This revelation transforms interpretation of Jedi history from linear progression to spiral evolution, each cycle incorporating elements from previous iterations while manifesting unique variations addressing new conditions. What appeared as institutional failure or individual tragedy becomes recognizable as necessary components in this grand design, serving purposes beyond immediate perception. The Matrix shows how this understanding informed Circle preparations during the Final Republic era. As signs of impending transformation accumulated, they intensified efforts to preserve knowledge crucial for whatever would emerge from coming upheaval. Not merely Jedi teachings, but wisdom from diverse Force traditions, perspectives that might inform new synthesis after the necessary clearing of established paradigms. You witness their final preparations before Order 66, knowledge distributed to hidden locations across the galaxy, training methods encoded in cultural practices that would survive political suppression, Force-sensitive children identified and protected through networks beyond Imperial awareness, not desperate measures against absolute catastrophe, but considered response to anticipated transition between Force paradigms. They understood that what appeared as ending was simultaneously beginning, the Keeper says, as the vision begins to fade. The death of one Force understanding creating space for birth of another, more evolved perspective. As the crystal matrix powers down, returning you to full awareness of the archive chamber, you find yourself processing these profound revelations. The Jedi Order's history, when viewed through this cosmic lens, transforms from simple morality tale to complex evolutionary process. Their greatest achievements and most catastrophic failures alike served the Force's grand design, moving galactic consciousness incrementally toward more sophisticated understanding. This hidden truth fundamentally recontextualizes our understanding of current events. You observe the fall of the Jedi, the rise and fall of the Empire, the emergence of new Force users operating outside traditional paradigms, all part of necessary transition rather than aberration. The Keeper nods agreement. The Circle prepared for this transition for centuries, recognizing its necessity while working to ensure essential wisdom survived to inform whatever new understanding emerged. The chronometer at your wrist pulses with increasing urgency, the archive's structural integrity continuing to deteriorate. Like the Force paradigm it documents, this repository approaches its own transition point, knowledge preserved here, preparing to find new vessels for continuation. We should explore how the Circle's understanding of cosmic cycles influenced events during the Empire's reign, you suggest. The connections between their preserved wisdom and emergent Force traditions following the Order's fall. As the MK droid prepares the next crystal matrix, you take a moment to integrate these revelations into your evolving understanding of Force history. The complete Jedi timeline reveals itself not as isolated events or individual choices, but interconnected patterns serving purposes beyond immediate perception. Cosmic design operating through apparent chaos toward continued evolution of Force understanding. The seventh crystal matrix responds to your touch with a subtle shift in the archive chamber's ambient energy. Rather than projecting a unified vision or fragmented timeline, this matrix creates a unique experience combining elements of both approaches. The chamber transforms into a circular council space, unlike any documented in official Jedi records, with architectural elements suggesting influences from multiple Force traditions beyond the Order itself. The Circle Conclave Chamber, the Keeper identifies. Not a physical location, but a Force construct maintained through collective meditation, allowing members separated by vast distances to gather in shared consciousness. Around this virtual council chamber materialize representations of diverse Force practitioners spanning cultures, species, and philosophical approaches. Some wear traditional Jedi attire, others garments reflecting their distinct cultural origins. Their appearance shifts subtly as the vision progresses through different eras, individuals changing while the gathering's purpose remains consistent. Here, the circle transcended institutional limitations to preserve wisdom from traditions the Order officially rejected, the MK droid explains. Each representative brings knowledge from Force lineages developed independently of Jedi orthodoxy. The conclave begins with a ritual. Unlike Jedi meditation practices, participants connect not through composed detachment but resonant harmonic engagement, their Force signatures interacting like instruments in an orchestra. The resulting Force symphony creates patterns in the chamber's central space, visualizing connections between seemingly disparate traditions. First to address the gathering is a representative of the Guardians of the Wills from Jeddah, a blind human woman whose connection to the Force manifests not through conventional sensitivity, but profound intuitive understanding. She shares wisdom from her tradition, focusing on understanding purpose rather than accumulating power. We seek not to command the Force, but to comprehend its will, she explains, not bending it to our design, but aligning ourselves with its greater purpose. This requires listening rather than imposing, receptivity rather than assertion. This fundamental approach contrasts sharply with both Jedi and Sith paradigms, which despite their differences share emphasis on Force manipulation rather than receptive alignment. The Guardian describes techniques for sensing the Force's natural flow through all living things, perceiving patterns invisible to those focused on control. Next comes a representative of the Night Sisters from Dathomir, their tradition typically dismissed by the Jedi as corrupted dark side practitioners. The green-skinned woman's Force signature appears superficially aligned with darkness, yet lacks the chaotic disruption typically associated with dark side corruption. We embrace the darkness not as corruption, but as necessary counterpart to light, she tells the gathering. Our magics draw power from both life and death, creation and destruction, recognizing that neither exists without the other. She demonstrates techniques utilizing aspects of the Force the Jedi categorize as dark while maintaining internal balance and ethical boundaries. Their tradition views light and dark not as moral categories but complementary energies both necessary for wholeness. The apparent corruption perceived by Jedi observers reflects not evil intent but fundamentally different conceptualization of Force aspects. The conclave continues with representatives from numerous traditions rarely acknowledged in conventional histories. Lasat mystics, whose Force understanding manifests through connection to ancestral guidance. Zephos sages, whose psychometric abilities allow communion with objects across time. Dagoyan masters from Bardota, who achieve Force connection without conventional manipulation, experiencing rather than utilizing its power. Each tradition evolved distinct approaches based on their cultural context and natural proclivities. The Keeper explains, as these presentations unfold. The Circle recognized value in preserving this diversity rather than enforcing standardization. This philosophical pluralism directly contradicts the Jedi Council's approach to non-orthodox traditions, typically categorized as either irrelevant folk practices or dangerous deviations requiring correction. Where the institutional order sought uniformity, the Circle deliberately maintained diversity, recognizing that different perspectives collectively created more complete understanding than any single approach. The Matrix vision shifts to show how this gathered wisdom informed Circle operations during critical periods in Jedi history. When the Council faced challenges exceeding conventional techniques, Circle members quietly introduced alternative approaches drawn from these diverse traditions. You witness specific examples across different eras. During a planetary crisis on Deveron, where conventional force healing proved inadequate against a mysterious affliction, Circle members implemented Night Sister techniques focusing on the boundary between life and death. When diplomatic efforts failed with the previously unknown Chiss species, approaches derived from Lasat mysticism established communication through ancestral connection rather than direct negotiation. The Circle utilized thousands of techniques never documented in official Jedi archives, the MK droid notes. Their effectiveness demonstrated the artificial limitations created by doctrinal restrictions. Most significantly, these alternative approaches often succeeded precisely because they operated outside expected parameters. Adversaries prepared to counter conventional Jedi methods found themselves unprepared for techniques drawing on different Force aspects or manifestations. This practical advantage reinforced Circle conviction that diversity strengthened rather than weakened Force understanding. The Matrix shows how this pluralistic approach extended to Force phenomena the Council categorized as inexplicable or irrelevant. Circle members systematically studied experiences dismissed by Orthodox Jedi as hallucinations or misinterpretations, discovering consistent patterns suggesting genuine Force manifestations beyond conventional understanding. You observe their investigation of shared dreaming across vast distances, initially dismissed as coincidence until Circle research documented hundreds of cases among Force sensitives with no direct connection. Their exploration of consciousness transfer between organic beings, officially rejected as impossible until systematic study revealed naturally occurring examples in specific species. Their documentation of communication with those who have passed into the Force, categorized as subjective imagination until consistent information transfer defied probability. They discovered entire categories of Force phenomena excluded from Jedi awareness, not through empirical investigation, but doctrinal preconception, the Keeper explains. Experiences rejected because they contradicted established beliefs rather than demonstrable reality. This gathering of wisdom beyond institutional boundaries provided the Circle crucial perspective during the Order's final decline. While the Council increasingly focused on political challenges and military responsibilities, Circle members recognized symptoms of fundamental imbalance in the Force itself. Drawing on diverse traditions, they perceived patterns invisible to those trained exclusively in Orthodox Jedi techniques. The Matrix reveals a final conclave held shortly before the Clone Wars begin. Representatives from 17 distinct Force traditions gather in their shared consciousness space, each reporting similar disturbances in their connection to the cosmic Force. Not merely the clouding reported by the Jedi Council, but fundamental shifts in underlying patterns connecting all existence. A venerable Bardatan master summarizes their collective insight. The Force seeks balance through transformation. When established patterns become too rigid, dissolution precedes renewal. What the Jedi perceive as darkness rising represents not merely Sith influence, but the Force itself breaking patterns that no longer serve its evolution. This perspective fundamentally reframes the gathering conflict. Not simply light versus dark, but cosmic rebalancing, necessary destruction of calcified structures before new growth can emerge. The Circle recognizes their responsibility not to prevent this transformation, but ensure essential wisdom survives to inform whatever new understanding develops afterward. They prepared not for war, but transition, the Man-K droid explains. Their focus shifted from preservation within existing frameworks to transmission beyond institutional boundaries. The Matrix shows how this understanding shaped their final preparations, knowledge distributed not merely to hidden archives, but encoded in cultural practices across thousands of worlds, ensuring survival regardless of political outcomes. Training techniques embedded in seemingly unrelated traditions from dance to meditation to martial arts, preserving essential elements without obvious force connection. Force-sensitive individuals identified and positioned where their potential might develop outside institutional constraints. Most profoundly, they established connections with emerging force users operating beyond traditional paradigms, individuals whose natural abilities transcended conventional light-dark categorization, whose understanding innately recognized balance rather than opposition, not forming a new institution, but creating a network of independent practitioners connected through shared wisdom rather than hierarchical structure. The Circle recognized that the Force itself had initiated transition to post-Jedi, post-Sith understanding. The Keeper observes, their role became midwives to this birth, rather than preservers of existing traditions. This perspective transforms interpretation of events during the Republic's final years. Anakin Skywalker's arrival, often viewed as potential salvation perverted to tragedy, appears instead as necessary catalyst for transformation beyond obsolete paradigms. His journey from Jedi hope to Sith, enforcer to final transcendence beyond both traditions embodies the very transition the Force required. The Matrix vision expands to show how diverse wisdom gathered by the Circle revealed patterns in Force evolution invisible to those within single traditions. Each great shift in Force understanding throughout galactic history followed similar progression, established paradigm, reaching its developmental limits, period of apparent darkness or chaos as existing structures dissolve, emergence of new synthesis incorporating elements from previous understanding while transcending its limitations. The current transition follows cosmic patterns documented across hundreds of thousands of years. The Man-K droid notes, different in specific manifestation but consistent in fundamental structure. This gathered wisdom provided the Circle unique perspective on prophecies concerning balance. Where conventional Jedi interpreted these predictions as ultimate triumph of light over darkness, their comparative study across traditions revealed more nuanced understanding. Balance required not elimination of darkness but integration with light, not victory of one aspect over another, but recognition of their necessary complementarity. You witness how this perspective informed their interpretation of Anakin Skywalker's role as potential balance bringer, not through military victory against Sith enemies, but fundamental transformation of Force, understanding beyond the artificial light-dark dichotomy that defined both Jedi and Sith traditions. His eventual fulfillment of this destiny would come not through strength but sacrifice, not domination but surrender, embodying balance in ways neither tradition anticipated. The Matrix shows how the Circle's gathered wisdom anticipated specific developments following the Jedi Order's fall. The emergence of Force users unbound by traditional limitations, the rediscovery of techniques long suppressed by institutional restriction, the gradual evolution toward understanding that transcends simplistic light versus dark categorization toward recognition of the Force's true unified nature. They foresaw not merely events but transformations in consciousness, the Keeper explains, the necessary evolution beyond perspectives that had reached their natural conclusion. This foresight explains the Circle's seeming acceptance of approaching catastrophe, not fatalistic surrender, but recognition of necessary transition, like agricultural societies accepting winter's fallow period as essential preparation for spring renewal. Their focus remained not on preventing inevitable change, but ensuring wisdom survived to inform what would emerge afterward. The Matrix vision culminates with a final gathering of Circle leaders as the Clone Wars reach their climax. Representatives from across the galaxy share reports confirming acceleration of predicted patterns. The Force itself appears to be clearing space for new understanding, dissolution preceding creation as universal law requires. Their response demonstrates neither panic nor despair, but purposeful adaptation. Final protocols activated for knowledge preservation across thousands of worlds, key individuals positioned to survive the coming purge, carrying essential wisdom beyond institutional structures, seeds planted that will germinate only when conditions allow, ensuring continuity across the approaching discontinuity. The circle completed its historical purpose. The MK droid observes as the vision begins to fade, not preventing the Order's fall, but ensuring its essential wisdom would transcend institutional mortality, informing whatever new understanding would eventually emerge. As the crystal matrix powers down, returning you to awareness of the archive chamber, you recognize how this gathered wisdom transforms interpretation of the complete Jedi timeline. Not linear progression toward perfect understanding, but spiral evolution through necessary cycles of growth, fulfillment, dissolution, and renewal. Each tradition, each era, contributing elements to ongoing Force comprehension without representing its definitive expression. This perspective fundamentally recontextualizes current developments in Force understanding. You observe the emergence of practitioners like Skywalker and Rey, who draw on Jedi traditions while transcending their limitations, represents not aberration but anticipated evolution. The Keeper nods agreement. The Circle gathered wisdom precisely to inform this transition, ensuring that valuable elements from previous understanding would incorporate into emerging synthesis rather than being lost entirely. The chronometer at your wrist pulses with increasing urgency, reminding of the archive's impending collapse. Like the transition it documents, this repository approaches its necessary end, knowledge preserved here preparing to find new vessels for continuation beyond physical structures. We should explore how this gathered wisdom directly influenced events following the Empire's fall, you suggest. The connections between Circle preservation efforts and new Force traditions emerging in subsequent eras. As the MK droid prepares the next crystal matrix, you contemplate how completely this evolving understanding transforms perception of the Jedi legacy. Not a perfect tradition tragically destroyed, but one expression of Force understanding fulfilling its purpose before necessarily giving way to more evolved perspectives. Their greatest wisdom lies not in answers they provided, but questions they explored, creating foundation for continued evolution beyond their specific conclusions. The eighth crystal matrix differs from all previous repositories. Rather than responding immediately to your touch, it remains dormant until the Keeper and MK droid simultaneously connect with it, suggesting security measures beyond standard archive protocols. As they establish this connection, the matrix emits a deep resonant tone that causes the chamber's kyber crystal formations to vibrate in harmonic response. What you are about to experience represents the culmination of Circle research spanning millennia, the Keeper explains, her form growing more defined as she channels additional Force energy into the matrix. The ultimate secret they discovered about the Jedi Order's true purpose and its relation to greater cosmic patterns. The MK droid adds, this information was deemed so potentially disruptive that access required joint authorization from both organic and mechanical archive custodians, preventing emotional or programming biases from influencing the decision to share it. As the matrix fully activates, the archive chamber transforms unlike previous visions. Rather than observing historical events or abstract patterns, you experience direct neural interface with the collective knowledge itself. Information flows not through visual or auditory channels but immediate consciousness transfer bypassing conventional sensory processing. The initial revelation staggers your perception. The Jedi Order's original purpose, when first consolidated from diverse Force traditions, was not primarily to serve as Republic peacekeepers or even guardians of Force knowledge. These roles developed later as adaptations to changing circumstances. Their fundamental mission, established during the First Great Convocation 15 millennia earlier, focused on a threat few members would ever consciously know existed. The Jedi were established as sentinels. The information transfer reveals, not against temporal adversaries but cosmic ones, guardians protecting the galaxy from influences beyond conventional perception. This sentinel purpose originated with discoveries made by early Force explorers who encountered evidence suggesting external interference in galactic force development. Beings from beyond known space occasionally attempted to influence force manifestation within the galaxy, sometimes benevolently but often destructively. These interventions occurred primarily through force nexus points where the boundary between conventional reality and other dimensions thinned. The original Jedi founders recognized that no single tradition could effectively monitor these vulnerabilities across an entire galaxy. They established a unified order specifically positioned to control access to major nexus points, placing temples at these locations not merely for training or meditation but containment and protection. The Jedi temples served as seals. The data stream continues. Their specific architectural configurations and continuous force presence maintained barriers between dimensions, preventing unrestricted external influence while allowing controlled force flow. This explains why early Jedi immediately secured certain locations despite their seeming lack of strategic importance. Planets like Ilum, Jeddah, and Arch-2 housed temples, not primarily for their natural resources or tactical positions, but their status as dimensional thresholds requiring constant monitoring. The Order's expansion across the galaxy followed patterns designed to establish presence at every significant nexus point, creating a comprehensive protective network. Most Jedi remained unaware of this underlying purpose, believing they served more obvious missions related to peacekeeping or knowledge preservation. Only the highest council members and specialized sentinels received full briefing about the Order's fundamental role as cosmic barrier maintenance. This compartmentalization protected the majority from knowledge that might disturb their essential force harmony while ensuring necessary functions continued. As centuries passed and no major incursions occurred, institutional memory regarding the original threat gradually faded. What began as deliberate security compartmentalization evolved into genuine ignorance, with successive generations of leaders receiving increasingly diluted understanding of their organization's true purpose. By the time the Republic formalized its relationship with the Jedi, most council members understood their sentinel role as metaphorical rather than literal, a philosophical stance rather than practical function. The Matrix reveals how this mission drift critically compromised the Order's effectiveness. Temples originally designed with specific force harmonics to maintain dimensional barriers underwent renovations prioritizing aesthetic or practical considerations over their essential functions. Training regimens developed to create specialized force signatures capable of reinforcing these barriers gradually transformed into generalized combat and diplomatic preparation. The precise knowledge required for effective cosmic defense became restricted to increasingly small circles until finally lost entirely. The ultimate tragedy of the Jedi, the information transfer conveys, was not their fall to external enemies, but their gradual abandonment of their original purpose through forgetting rather than defeat. This revelation connects directly to the Circle's most profound discovery, identified through their systematic study of force phenomena across millennia. Their research revealed natural cycles of dimensional thinning occurring approximately every 1,000 years, periods when barriers between conventional reality and other force realms naturally weakened. During these cycles, external entities could more easily influence galactic force manifestation unless appropriately countered by knowledgeable practitioners. The original Jedi design specifically prepared for these cycles, training generations of specialized guardians to reinforce dimensional boundaries during vulnerable periods. This system functioned effectively for thousands of years, maintaining galactic protection even as most Order members remained unaware of their collective role in this cosmic defense. The systematic purging of knowledge, deemed dangerous or heretical, gradually eroded this protective capability. Techniques essential for dimensional boundary maintenance were categorized as potential dark side influences and restricted or eliminated from training. The specialized force harmonics required for effective barrier reinforcement became classified as forbidden resonance patterns due to their intensity. The very knowledge necessary for the Order's original purpose became victim to doctrinal purification. The second circle formed initially in response to this specific threat. The Matrix reveals, not merely preserving knowledge for philosophical completion, but maintaining capabilities essential for the Order's fundamental protective function. This context transforms understanding of the Circle's operations across centuries. Their preservation of seemingly unrelated force techniques, specifically focused on maintaining capabilities necessary for dimensional barrier reinforcement. Their establishment of hidden training centers at secondary nexus points ensured continued protection of vulnerable locations, even as the main Order's effectiveness diminished. Their recruitment prioritized individuals with natural aptitude for the specialized force harmonics required for boundary maintenance. The Matrix shifts to reveal the Circle's most alarming discovery, identified approximately 500 years before the Clone Wars. Their systematic monitoring of dimensional boundary integrity detected progressive weakening across multiple nexus points simultaneously, a pattern unprecedented in their historical records. This deterioration accelerated despite their maintenance efforts, suggesting fundamental change in the underlying force structure supporting these barriers. Intensive investigation revealed disturbing correlation between this weakening and specific decisions by the Jedi Council. As the Order increasingly aligned with Republic political structures, their force presence shifted from neutral protection toward specific socio-political outcomes. This alignment created subtle distortion in the collective force signature generated by thousands of Jedi across the galaxy, compromising the harmonic resonance required for effective barrier maintenance. The systematic purging of specific knowledge, techniques, and perspectives created progressive vulnerability. The information stream continues. What began as philosophical preference became practical danger as the Order's collective force signature grew increasingly specialized and therefore less effective for universal protection. This discovery explains the Circle's seemingly contradictory approach during the Republic's final era. While working to preserve Jedi knowledge against coming darkness, they simultaneously recognized that the Order's current form had become fundamentally compromised in fulfilling its original purpose. The institutional Jedi had transformed from cosmic sentinels into political agents, their collective force signature too specialized for effective dimensional barrier maintenance. The Matrix reveals the Circle's most profound insight, reached after centuries of observation and analysis. The Force itself appeared to be orchestrating necessary correction through the very catastrophes conventional wisdom interpreted as failures or tragedies. The rise of the Sith, the clouding of Jedi perception, the emergence of Anakin Skywalker with his unprecedented Force potential, all served greater pattern of cosmic rebalancing. What appears as darkness rising represents necessary recalibration, the data transfer explains. The Force itself breaking patterns that no longer serve their essential purpose, clearing space for new configurations better aligned with cosmic necessities. This perspective fundamentally transforms understanding of pivotal events in recent galactic history. Palpatine's rise and the Empire's establishment, conventionally viewed as triumph of darkness, appear instead as necessary clearing of institutional structures that had become obstacles to effective cosmic protection. The elimination of Jedi operating under compromised doctrines created space for emergence of new Force paradigms, potentially more effective at maintaining dimensional integrity. The Matrix reveals the Circle's most carefully guarded secret, evidence suggesting deliberate external influence in these developments. Their monitoring of force patterns during Palpatine's rise detected anomalous energy signatures consistent with subtle manipulation from beyond conventional reality, not controlling events directly, but amplifying natural tendencies, like wind strengthening existing currents rather than creating them. The Watchers appeared to be guiding transformation, the information conveys, not through direct intervention, but selective reinforcement, strengthening developments serving greater cosmic purpose while allowing others to unfold naturally. This revelation connects directly to ancient prophecies about bringing balance to the Force. Circle research across diverse traditions revealed consistent predictions about necessary recalibration following periods when Force usage drifted too far from natural equilibrium. These prophecies described not military victory of light over darkness, but fundamental correction of perspective, restoration of balance between opposing aspects necessary for effective cosmic protection. The Matrix shifts to reveal the Circle's ultimate discovery regarding the threat requiring this protection. Through careful analysis of anomalous force patterns at boundary weakness points, they reconstructed partial understanding of what exists beyond conventional reality. Not simply another dimension, but multiple realms occupied by entities with fundamentally different relationships to the Force than those within the galaxy. Some of these entities appear benevolent or at least neutral toward galactic life, observing Force development with apparent scholarly interest. Others demonstrate patterns consistent with predatory intent, attempting to influence Force-sensitive individuals or directly manipulate energy patterns when barriers weaken sufficiently. Most concerning, evidence suggests organized effort by certain external entities to systematically compromise dimensional boundaries through corruption of internal protective measures. The Sith unknowingly served external influence. The information transfer reveals their techniques for drawing power through emotional intensity created specific Force signatures that accelerated boundary deterioration, weakening protection against the very entities that subtly encouraged their development. This context explains why traditional Sith techniques produced distinct Force ripples detectable by trained sensitives. Beyond their immediate destructive applications, these methods generate harmonic patterns that disrupt the frequency stability required for dimensional barrier maintenance. The cosmic threat from Sith influence extends far beyond their obvious destructive capacity to fundamental vulnerability they unknowingly create. The Matrix reveals how this understanding informed Circle contingency planning during the Empire's rise. Their preservation efforts focus specifically on knowledge and techniques necessary for dimensional barrier maintenance, ensuring these capabilities would survive even if the Jedi Order did not. They identified and protected individuals with natural aptitude for generating the specialized Force harmonics required for effective protection, positioning them where they might survive the purge. Most significantly, they recognized that effective cosmic protection required transcendence beyond the artificial light-dark dichotomy that had defined Force understanding for millennia. The specialized Force signatures necessary for comprehensive barrier maintenance incorporated aspects categorized as both light and dark in traditional teaching, achieving harmonics impossible through exclusive alignment with either aspect alone. The Force itself requires balance for effective cosmic protection. The data stream emphasizes not opposition between light and dark, but integration of all aspects into comprehensive understanding, transcending artificial categorization. This revelation transforms interpretation of Anakin Skywalker's role in Force evolution. His unprecedented potential represented possibility for entirely new Force paradigm transcending traditional limitations. His journey through both Jedi and Sith experiences created unique perspective impossible within either tradition alone. His final rejection of both light and dark absolutism in favor of personal connection embodied the very integration necessary for effective cosmic protection. The Matrix shifts to its most profound revelation, one so potentially disruptive that even within the circle it remained restricted to the highest level of initiation. Their comprehensive analysis of force patterns across millennia suggested that the galaxy exists within nested layers of conscious intent. The force itself appears to possess agency beyond simple energy field, connecting all living things, demonstrating patterns consistent with purposeful evolution toward increasingly sophisticated self-awareness. The whisper among the ruins was not a warning, but a call to arms. The information transfer reveals, mirroring the phrase from the ancient temple vision. The first ripples of a storm that has crossed the void between galaxies, a harbinger of confrontation between fundamentally different manifestations of universal consciousness. This ultimate context reframes all Force traditions as evolutionary experiments in conscious energy manipulation, testing different approaches to determine most effective manifestation for coming challenges. The Jedi-Sith dichotomy represents not cosmic truth, but developmental stage, like opposing perspectives that must eventually synthesize into more comprehensive understanding. The imminent threat extends beyond specific external entities to fundamental cosmic question, whether consciousness manifest through Force connection will continue evolving toward greater complexity and depth, or be subsumed by manifestations prioritizing different values, not simply conflict between light and dark, but between fundamentally different conceptions of what consciousness itself should become. As this climactic revelation completes its transfer into your awareness, the crystal matrix gradually powers down, returning you to normal perception within the archive chamber. The experience leaves you simultaneously expanded and humbled, perspective transformed by understanding that extends beyond conventional history into cosmic evolution itself. The ultimate secret preserved by the circle, the Keeper says softly as her form stabilizes, transforms not merely our understanding of the Jedi, but our conception of the Force itself. Not simply energy field or mystical power, but evolving consciousness using life forms as vessels for progressive self-awareness. This revelation contextualizes the complete Jedi timeline within vastly larger framework. Their traditions, achievements, and failures alike serve developmental function within cosmic evolutionary process. Their greatest purpose lay not in temporal peacekeeping or even knowledge preservation, but maintaining conditions allowing continued consciousness evolution within this galaxy. Their original mission remains valid despite institutional collapse, the MK droid observes. Protection against external influence threatening natural Force development continues, regardless of which traditions or individuals manifest necessary qualities. This perspective fundamentally transforms understanding of current galactic situation. The emergence of new Force users operating beyond traditional paradigms represents not aberration but anticipated evolution. The apparent chaos following institutional collapse creates space for development of approaches potentially more effective at fulfilling the essential protective function than previous structures allowed. The Force itself guides this evolution. The Keeper concludes, not toward predetermined outcome, but continued development. Our role remains not controlling this process, but serving its continuation through preservation and transmission of essential wisdom. As the climactic revelation settles into your awareness, you recognize how completely it transforms interpretation of events you've witnessed throughout this exploration. The complete Jedi timeline reveals itself as simultaneously smaller and larger than conventional understanding suggests. Smaller in representing merely one developmental stage in ongoing Force evolution, larger in connecting to cosmic purpose, transcending specific institutions or traditions. The chronometer at your wrist pulses with renewed urgency, the archive's structural integrity continuing to deteriorate. Like the knowledge it contains, this repository approaches transition from one vessel to another, wisdom preserved here preparing to find new expression beyond physical structures that temporarily housed it. We should explore how this ultimate secret connects to emerging Force paradigms following the Empire's fall, you suggest. the relationship between circle preservation efforts and new manifestations of cosmic protective function in subsequent eras. As the MK droid begins preparation of the final crystal matrix, you contemplate the profound implications of what you've learned. The complete Jedi timeline encompasses far more than institutional history, connecting individual experiences across millennia to cosmic evolutionary process, potentially spanning multiple galaxies. Their legacy lies not merely in specific techniques or philosophical concepts, but fundamental contribution to consciousness evolution through the Force itself. The ninth crystal matrix appears distinctly different from its predecessors. Rather than uniform crystalline structure, it displays intricate internal fracture patterns, creating a complex web of light reflections. The Keeper explains that this unique configuration represents not damage but deliberate design, allowing the matrix to store information in multidimensional patterns rather than linear sequences. This repository contains the circle's integration of all previous knowledge, she elaborates. Not merely collection of separate insights but comprehensive synthesis revealing connections across disparate elements. As you establish connection with this final matrix, the archive chamber transforms in unprecedented manner. Rather than projecting external visions or transferring information streams, the matrix alters your own perception, expanding awareness beyond normal constraints. You experience not observation of history, but participation within it, consciousness temporarily liberated from conventional temporal and spatial limitations. In this enhanced state, you perceive how the third open loop resolves through recognition of fundamental truth underlying all Force manifestations. The artificial separation between light and dark aspects represents not cosmic reality, but perceptual limitation, like experiencing only fragments of complete spectrum. True balance requires not opposition between these fragments, but integration into comprehensive whole transcending artificial categorization. This understanding illuminates the complete Jedi timeline from entirely new perspective. Their evolution from Jedi balance through increasing specialization toward light aspects served necessary developmental function, exploring specific portion of Force potential with unprecedented depth. The parallel Sith journey through darkness provided complementary exploration of opposing aspects, each tradition mapping territory essential for complete understanding. Both paths were necessary yet incomplete, the expanded perception reveals, each discovering crucial elements while missing complementary truths explored by their counterparts. This context transforms interpretation of crucial moments throughout Force history. The initial Jedi schism represented not mistake but necessary differentiation, allowing specialized exploration impossible within balanced tradition. The recurring conflicts between Jedi and Sith served as laboratories testing different Force manifestations under extreme conditions, revealing strengths and limitations of various approaches. The cyclical rise and fall of dominant traditions created space for periodic recalibration, preventing permanently skewed development. Most significantly, this understanding reframes the prophecy about bringing balance to the Force, not through military victory eliminating darkness, nor equalizing power between opposing factions, but transcending artificial division altogether. True balance requires recognizing that light and dark represent perceptual categories imposed upon unified reality, not fundamental cosmic division. The misunderstanding of balance formed the Jedi's crucial limitation. The expanded awareness conveys seeking to eliminate darkness rather than integrate its necessary aspects into comprehensive whole. The Matrix reveals how this misunderstanding compromised the Order's effectiveness in fulfilling their original protective purpose. Effective dimensional barrier maintenance requires Force harmonics incorporating aspects from across the complete spectrum, including elements the Jedi categorized as dark and therefore rejected. Their specialization created specific strengths but corresponding vulnerabilities, like immune system recognizing only certain threat categories while remaining blind to others. This perspective resolves apparent contradictions in how the Force itself responded to various interventions. The seemingly inconsistent results of light or dark side techniques reflect not arbitrary outcomes, but specific resonance patterns generated by different approaches. Certain applications produce harmonics strengthening dimensional integrity regardless of their light-dark categorization, while others create vulnerabilities despite pure intentions. The Force itself transcends good and evil as moral categories, the expanded perception explains. Its patterns respond to effective or ineffective harmonics rather than philosophical alignment. This framework illuminates why the Jedi progressively lost effectiveness despite intensifying dedication to light side principles. Their increasing specialization generated Force signature too narrowly focused for comprehensive dimensional maintenance, creating vulnerabilities despite sincere protective intent. Simultaneously, Sith methods produced effective barrier reinforcement in specific frequencies despite destructive applications in conventional reality. The Matrix shifts to reveal how this understanding informed circle preparations during the Empire's ascendance. Their preservation efforts focused not merely on maintaining Jedi knowledge, but identifying elements from diverse traditions necessary for comprehensive protective function. They recognized that effective cosmic defense required synthesis incorporating aspects from both Jedi and Sith approaches, while transcending limitations of each. Most crucially, they understood that this synthesis could not be artificially constructed, but must emerge organically through individuals experiencing both traditions directly. The necessary integration required not academic understanding, but lived experience, navigating light and dark aspects within oneself, achieving internal balance transcending institutional doctrines. This necessity explains why Circle leadership made no attempt to prevent Anakin Skywalker's fall, the expanded awareness reveals. They recognized his journey through both Jedi and Sith experiences as potentially creating perspective impossible within either tradition alone. The Matrix shows how Circle members subtly monitored Skywalker's development across decades, recognizing pattern consistent with ancient prophecies about fundamental Force recalibration. His unprecedented potential, connection to both light and dark aspects, and ultimate rejection of absolute alignment with either path matched predictions about emergence of new Force paradigm, transcending traditional limitations. This context transforms interpretation of Skywalker's final confrontation with the Emperor. Beyond personal redemption or military victory, his actions represented emergence of entirely new Force approach integrating aspects previously considered incompatible. By choosing connection over power, compassion over ideology, he manifested precisely the balanced perspective necessary for effective cosmic protection. The moment when the three become as one, the expanded perception identifies, directly referencing the ancient prophecy fragment. Father, Son, and Emperor, representing different Force manifestations, synthesizing into comprehensive understanding, transcending their individual limitations. This integration created ripple effects, extending far beyond immediate military outcome. The Force harmonic generated by Skywalker's balanced action strengthened dimensional barriers across multiple nexus points simultaneously, reversing deterioration pattern that had accelerated for centuries. His sacrifice initiated recalibration, not merely in political reality, but cosmic Force manifestation throughout the galaxy. The Matrix shifts to reveal how this momentous event connected to broader galactic Force evolution. Luke Skywalker's subsequent journey represented not restoration of traditional Jedi paradigm, but exploration of entirely new approach incorporating balanced understanding, impossible within original order constraints. His integration of elements from diverse traditions while rejecting absolute doctrinal alignment embodied the synthesized perspective necessary for ongoing cosmic protection. The student surpassed both his teachers, the expanded awareness notes, drawing wisdom from Yoda and Obi-Wan, while transcending their traditional Jedi limitations, learning from Vader's experience without succumbing to dark side corruption. This developmental path, manifested most clearly in Luke's approach toward his final student, Rey. Rather than imposing traditional Jedi doctrine, he guided her toward direct connection with the Force itself, encouraging her to explore its complete nature beyond artificial categorizations. His recognition that effective Force understanding requires embracing the totality rather than selective aspects represented profound evolution beyond traditional Jedi teaching. The Matrix reveals how Rey's subsequent journey embodied this integrated understanding. Her natural affinity for both light and dark aspects, connection to multiple Force traditions through various mentors, and ultimate transcendence of bloodline determination all reflect the balanced approach necessary for effective cosmic protection. Her final identity choice represents not rejection of heritage, but integration of multiple influences into cohesive whole defined by personal choice rather than external categorization. She embodies the resolution of artificial division, the expanded perception explains, not through elimination of darkness, but recognition that light and dark represent aspects of unified whole rather than opposing forces. This perspective illuminates why Rey can effectively utilize techniques traditionally associated with both Jedi and Sith traditions without corrupting influence. Her balanced approach generates Force harmonics, maintaining dimensional integrity regardless of specific techniques employed, transcending artificial limitations imposed by doctrinal categorization. Her effectiveness derives not from rejection of darkness, but integration of all aspects into comprehensive understanding. The Matrix shifts to reveal how this emerging paradigm connects to original Jedi philosophy, predating Jedi-Sith division. The balanced approach being rediscovered represents not innovation but return to fundamental understanding temporarily obscured by necessary specialization phase. The artificial light-dark dichotomy served developmental purpose by allowing deep exploration of specific aspects, but always required eventual reintegration into unified perspective. The spiral completes one revolution and begins another. The expanded awareness conveys, returning to original balance but at higher level of sophistication informed by specialized exploration during intermediate phase. This evolutionary framework explains why the Force itself appears to have orchestrated events, leading to institutional collapse, followed by emergence of new manifestations. The Jedi Order's increasing specialization and rigidity prevented natural adaptation toward necessary reintegration, requiring complete dissolution before renewal could emerge. The apparent tragedy served essential developmental function within larger cosmic pattern. The Matrix reveals how the Circle recognized and aligned with this evolutionary necessity. Their preservation efforts focused specifically on knowledge supporting transition between paradigms rather than restoration of obsolete structures. They maintained essential wisdom while creating conditions allowing its expression through new forms better suited for contemporary challenges. Most significantly, they preserved understanding of the original cosmic threat requiring effective protection. Their research across millennia revealed cycles of external influence attempting to shape galactic Force development, sometimes benevolently but often destructively. The barriers maintained first by Jedi balance, then Jedi specialization, now required new manifestation through integrated understanding, transcending previous limitations. The Watchers remain. The expanded perception warns, some observing, others actively seeking influence when dimensional boundaries thin sufficiently for intervention. This context explains unusual Force phenomena observed during the First Order conflict and subsequent developments. The heightened cosmic sensitivity experienced by diverse Force users across the galaxy, unexpected connections forming between individuals without conventional training, spontaneous manifestation of abilities traditionally requiring extensive instruction, all reflect thinning dimensional boundaries, allowing greater Force flow between realms. The Matrix shifts to reveal the Circle's final contribution before their own institutional dissolution. Recognizing that effective cosmic protection now required distributed network rather than centralized organization, they systematically positioned knowledge, individuals, and techniques, ensuring continued barrier maintenance regardless of political circumstances, not preserving themselves as institution but their essential function through whatever vessels proved most effective. They completed transition from preservation to transmission, the expanded awareness explains, ensuring necessary capabilities would manifest through emerging force paradigms rather than remaining locked within obsolete structures. This approach explains seemingly miraculous preservation of crucial knowledge despite systematic purges. The circle encoded essential techniques within cultural practices appearing unrelated to Force tradition, embedded critical information in artifacts that would survive political upheaval, positioned individuals with necessary potential where they might develop outside institutional constraints. Their dissolution as formal organization represented not defeat but evolution beyond structural limitations. The Matrix reveals how this distributed approach proves more resilient against external influence than previous centralized models. Where the Jedi Order presented single target vulnerable to focused corruption, the dispersed network of independent practitioners creates multiple redundant systems maintaining cosmic protection through diverse methods. The very chaos apparent from institutional perspective generates adaptive strength against threats targeting specific vulnerabilities. The many become the one, the expanded perception conveys. Diverse individuals collectively manifesting protective function previously requiring formal organization. This framework illuminates the emergence of Force sensitives beyond traditional lineages following the Empire's fall. Not random mutation but deliberate seeding by Circle members ensuring necessary capabilities would develop throughout the galaxy. Their careful genetic distribution created potential for specific Force harmonics required for dimensional barrier maintenance, manifesting through individuals with no conscious awareness of their cosmic function. Most significantly, the Matrix reveals how this dispersed network connects to the original cosmic Force tapestry visualized in previous repositories. The apparently random distribution of new Force sensitives actually follows precise pattern-matching dimensional boundary vulnerability points. Each practitioner unconsciously generates specific Force signature contributing to comprehensive protection, their collective harmonics maintaining barriers more effectively than previous models, despite lacking central coordination. They form living constellation, the expanded awareness explains. Each individual representing single point in pattern, invisible from ground level, yet forming coherent design when viewed from cosmic perspective. This revelation resolves the third open loop completely. The Jedi misunderstood balance not merely philosophically, but functionally. Effective cosmic protection requires neither light triumphant over darkness, nor equal opposition between aspects, but recognition that these categories represent artificial divisions imposed on unified reality. True balance means perceiving the Force as comprehensive whole while respecting necessary complementarity between all aspects. The Matrix shows how this understanding manifests in emerging Force traditions following institutional collapse. Luke Skywalker's temporary academy, Rey's subsequent explorations, and diverse independent practitioners developing across the galaxy all demonstrate evolution toward integrated approach transcending traditional limitations. Their methods incorporate elements previously categorized as light or dark, while recognizing that effective Force expression requires contextual wisdom rather than absolute doctrine. The resolution emerges not through restoration but transformation. The expanded perception summarizes. Not returning to previous forms but evolving toward more comprehensive understanding, incorporating all previous developments while transcending their limitations. As the crystal matrix completes its cycle, your consciousness gradually returns to conventional perception within the archive chamber. The experience leaves you fundamentally transformed, understanding expanded beyond institutional history to cosmic evolutionary context. The complete Jedi timeline reveals itself as simultaneously ending and beginning, conclusion of necessary specialization phase, and commencement of reintegration into balanced wholeness. The third loop resolves through recognition that misunderstanding balance formed the fundamental limitation in Jedi philosophy. You observe as awareness fully returns, not moral failure but perceptual constraint preventing recognition of necessary complementarity between all Force aspects. The Keeper nods agreement, her form growing increasingly transparent as the archive's structural integrity continues deteriorating. The Circle preserved this understanding specifically to inform emerging paradigms after institutional collapse. Not restoration of traditional Jedi approach, but evolution toward more comprehensive balance, incorporating wisdom from all traditions. This perspective fundamentally recontextualizes galactic events from ancient Jedi founding through contemporary developments. The complete Force timeline forms not linear progression but spiral evolution, returning to fundamental balance at higher level of sophistication informed by specialized exploration during intermediate phase. The apparent tragedy of institutional collapse served necessary function within this developmental pattern. The knowledge preserved here was never intended merely for historical documentation. The Menke droid notes, as systems throughout the chamber, begin powering down sequentially. But transmission across paradigm shifts, ensuring essential wisdom would inform whatever new understanding emerged from necessary transformation. The chronometer at your wrist pulses with final warning, the archive's remaining operational time, measured now in minutes rather than hours. Like the tradition it documents, this repository approaches completion of its intended purpose, knowledge transferring from obsolete vessel to new carrier, capable of transmitting essential wisdom beyond institutional constraints. We should complete our exploration with understanding of how this cosmic perspective informs responsibilities for those aware of it, you suggest, conscious that little time remains before the archive joins the cycle of necessary endings and beginnings. As the MK droid activates the final crystal matrix, you reflect on how completely this journey has transformed your understanding of Force history. The complete timeline reveals patterns invisible when examining isolated events or eras, connecting individual experiences across millennia into coherent evolutionary progression toward increasingly sophisticated Force manifestation. The wisdom preserved here transcends specific traditions, illuminating underlying purpose served by all paths exploring different aspects of unified cosmic reality. The final crystal matrix responds to your touch with gentle luminescence, its internal structure unlike any previous repository. Rather than ordered lattice or complex fracture patterns, this matrix contains what appears to be suspended nebula, cosmic materials captured in crystalline form. The Keeper explains that this unique configuration stores not specific information, but experiential synthesis designed to integrate disparate knowledge into coherent understanding. This concluding repository offers not new revelations, but peaceful resolution, she explains, as the matrix begins its activation sequence. The wisdom to carry forward once specific details fade from memory. As connection establishes, the archive chamber transforms one final time. The walls dissolve into cosmic panorama, extending infinitely in all directions, stars and nebulae flowing like rivers of light across the void. You float untethered from physical form, consciousness expanding to embrace the galaxy in single perception. The experience transcends mere vision, engaging awareness at fundamental level beyond conventional senses. In this expanded state, individual elements from previous explorations flow together like tributaries joining mighty river. The fragmented history resolves into continuous narrative spanning eons, connecting ancient Jedi practitioners through diverse traditions to contemporary Force users. Each individual, organization, and philosophy appears as essential thread in vast tapestry, contributing necessary elements to collective evolution regardless of temporary alignment or opposition. From this perspective, light and dark lose meaning as absolute categories the peaceful awareness conveys, appearing instead as complementary aspects necessary for complete understanding, like inhalation and exhalation forming single breath. This cosmic viewpoint reveals how the Force itself flows through continuous cycles of expansion and contraction, creation and dissolution, growth and transformation. The rise and fall of civilizations, traditions, and individuals serves ongoing evolutionary process, each temporarily manifesting specific aspects before yielding to new expressions. Nothing truly ends but rather transforms, energy changing form while maintaining essential continuity. You perceive how this endless cycle manifests through specific individuals whose journeys embodied transformation between paradigms. Anakin Skywalker's path from innocent potential through darkness into final transcendent balance. Luke's evolution from naive idealism through disillusionment to wisdom transcending institutional limitations. Rey's integration of multiple influences into coherent identity defined by personal choice rather than external categorization, each representing not isolated story but archetypal pattern recurring throughout Force history in endless variations. The cycle continues because it must, the expanded awareness explains. Each iteration exploring new variations while maintaining essential continuity, like theme and variations in cosmic symphony. The perspective shifts to witness how the knowledge preserved within this hidden archive now flows outward through your consciousness, joining currents of evolving Force understanding throughout the galaxy. Not restoring obsolete structures, but informing emerging paradigms, contributing essential wisdom to developmental process already underway. The circle's purpose completes not through institutional survival, but successful transmission beyond structural limitations. You observe how this transmitted understanding already influences diverse Force practitioners across countless worlds, some consciously accessing ancient wisdom through recovered artifacts or direct communication with those who have become one with the Force. Others unconsciously manifesting techniques preserved through cultural transmission without recognizing their origins, all collectively contributing to dimensional barrier maintenance more resilient than previous models through adaptive diversity rather than standardized approach. The many paths converge toward common destination, the peaceful awareness conveys, not through imposed uniformity, but recognition of underlying unity expressed through infinite diversity. This framework illuminates responsibilities for those granted comprehensive understanding of Force evolution, not controlling this process, but serving its continuation, not imposing specific outcomes, but nurturing conditions allowing natural development. The most profound wisdom lies in recognizing when to act decisively and when to allow events their natural progression, like Gardner understanding difference between necessary pruning and harmful interference. The cosmic perspective reveals how knowledge itself serves temporary purpose rather than representing absolute value. Information becomes wisdom through integration with lived experience, theoretical understanding transformed through practical application. The archive preserved essential elements not as dogma for uncritical acceptance, but foundation for continued exploration, starting point rather than final destination. The Force flows toward increasing consciousness, the expanded awareness explains, using living vessels for progressive self-awareness, each tradition and individual contributing elements to ever-evolving expression. From this vantage point, you witness the archive chamber below, its physical structure beginning final dissolution as systems fail sequentially. Rather than tragedy, this necessary ending appears as natural transition, knowledge transferring from temporary vessel to living carriers capable of continued transmission. The Circle understood their own institution, like the Jedi Order before them, must eventually yield to new forms better adapted for contemporary challenges. The perspective expands further, encompassing the entire planet as single entity within galactic ecosystem. Orsis itself represents not merely location but participant in ongoing force evolution, its natural processes continuing long after humanoid civilizations rise and fall across its surface. The catastrophe that destroyed surface structures centuries ago appears as transition rather than ending, clearing space for new growth already emerging through resilient planetary systems. Life continues in endless cycles, the peaceful awareness observes. Death and renewal forming complementary aspects of unified process, necessary transformation rather than absolute ending. This understanding offers profound peace regarding historical transitions, often perceived as tragedies. The fall of ancient Jedi civilization created space for diverse traditions, developing unique perspectives, impossible within unified framework. The schism between Jedi and Sith allowed specialized exploration of distinct force aspects necessary for comprehensive understanding. The Order's destruction during Imperial ascendance enabled evolution beyond institutional limitations toward more resilient manifestations. The cosmic perspective reveals how Force presence permeates all existence, not limited to conscious practitioners but flowing through every living entity. Plants absorbing and transforming energy, animals instinctively sensing connections beyond physical perception, even seemingly inanimate materials resonating with subtle vibrations connecting all matter within unified field. The Force exists not as separate mystical element but fundamental aspect of reality itself, constantly flowing through endless cycles of manifestation. The Force remains. When specific expressions change, the expanded awareness conveys eternal presence manifesting through temporary forms, like ocean expressing through individual waves rising and returning to unified whole. This framework offers resolution regarding seemingly contradictory elements in Force philosophy. The apparent tension between individual significance and cosmic unity resolves through recognition that consciousness itself represents the Force becoming aware of its own nature through temporary vessels. Each unique perspective contributes essential element to collective self-awareness, individual experiences enriching universal understanding through infinite diversity. The perspective shifts once more to witness great cycle from cosmic vantage point. Force civilizations rising and falling across hundreds of thousands of years, each exploring different aspects through unique cultural expressions. The current transition appears as natural developmental phase rather than unprecedented catastrophe, necessary transformation opening possibilities for continued evolution beyond previous limitations. The endless cycle continues because it must, the peaceful awareness summarizes. Each iteration building upon previous foundations, while exploring new possibilities, spiral evolution returning to fundamental truths at increasingly sophisticated levels. As the final crystal matrix completes its cycle, your consciousness gradually returns to conventional perception. The archive chamber has changed during your expanded awareness, structural integrity failing as systems shut down sequentially. The Keeper's form appears increasingly transparent, her connection to physical location weakening as the repository approaches final dissolution. Our purpose concludes with successful transmission, she observes with serene acceptance. The knowledge preserved here now continues through your awareness, vessel changing while content remains. The Menke droid approaches with data crystal containing compressed copies of essential archives, final backup ensuring information survival beyond physical repository. This represents not complete knowledge but core understanding, it explains, offering the crystal to you. Sufficient foundation for continued exploration once circumstances allow. As you accept this final legacy, the chamber floor trembles slightly beneath your feet. Not violent destruction but gentle yielding, systems designed to ensure orderly dissolution rather than catastrophic collapse. The archive prepares for final transition, knowledge transferred while physical vessel returns to constituent elements. The time has come for departure, the Keeper says, her form growing fainter with each passing moment. The journey through complete Jedi timeline concludes where all journeys must, with understanding transcending specific details. The chronometer at your wrist indicates mere minutes remaining before final structural failure. Like meditation reaching natural conclusion, the archive prepares for transition from active function to peaceful completion. Its purpose fulfilled through successful knowledge transmission, systems now gracefully surrendering to natural cycle affecting all temporary forms. As you make your way toward the exit, crystal illuminators power down sequentially behind you, gentle twilight replacing their steady glow. The path remains visible through subtle luminescence emanating from the walls themselves, living crystal formations, continuing natural processes, independent from artificial systems. The archive returns to dormant state, knowledge preserved now flowing through living vessels rather than static repository. You emerge from hidden entrance as first light appears on eastern horizon, twin suns beginning their daily journey across Os's sky. The ancient landscape stretches before you, seemingly desolate yet teeming with resilient life adapted to challenging conditions. Plants emerging from rocky crevices, small creatures beginning daily activities, planetary ecosystem continuing regardless of civilizations rising and falling across its surface. Standing at this threshold between hidden knowledge and open sky, you contemplate the journey completed and responsibilities accepted. The complete Jedi timeline revealed itself not merely as historical record, but cosmic evolutionary context, connecting individual experiences across millennia into coherent narrative of consciousness development through force connection. The wisdom preserved transcends specific traditions, illuminating underlying purpose served by all paths exploring different aspects of unified reality. As twin suns continue their ascent, their light transforming landscape from monochrome shadow to vibrant ecosystem, you recognize this natural cycle perfectly embodies the understanding gained through your exploration. Darkness yielding to light, not through opposition, but natural progression, complementary aspects forming unified whole through endless transition rather than absolute dominance. Balance manifest not as static equilibrium, but dynamic process, continuous flow between complementary states forming single cosmic breath. The force flows through all existence, eternal presence manifesting through temporary forms. The knowledge once contained in crystalline matrices now continues through living awareness, preserved not as static information, but dynamic understanding, evolving through continued application. The journey through complete Jedi timeline concludes not with absolute certainty, but peaceful acceptance of continuous evolution, wisdom finding expression through whatever forms best serve ongoing consciousness development. The ancient archives may return to constituent elements. The Jedi Order itself may transform beyond recognition, but the Force remains, flowing through endless cycles of manifestation toward ever-expanding awareness. The complete timeline reveals not ending but transition, not conclusion, but continuation through forms adapted for challenges yet to emerge from infinite possibilities contained within the cosmic force itself.